But Yudo doesn't mind the cost, as he immediately accepts it. Immediately, Yudo accepts this. The system tells him that all his skill cooldowns have been reset, and an overwhelming aura emanates from Yudo's body. The system lets Yudo know that he has temporarily been given power by Rei. With a smile on his face, Rei tells to get things done. And Yudo activates his acceleration skill. Yu leaps toward Raven, but Raven doesn't look scared. Just as Yutoto is about to reach Raven, he suddenly realizes that he is surrounded by ice spikes. He manages to escape from there thanks to his acceleration skill. Raven then reminds that he is the one who knows his movements best. Raven admits that Yudo's speed and dual blades are impressive, but he lets him know that he has 3 weaknesses. Raven says the first weakness that Yudo has is short reach. Yu soon finds himself struggling against Raven's incessant attacks. Yu realizes that Raven's spear is a direct counter to his speed because of its reach. Raven then continues by saying Yudo's second weakness is the lack of power. Raven proves this by swinging his spear at Yudo, releasing a wave of energy that pushes him back. Raven then mentions that Yudo's last weakness is the time limit on his skill. Raven continues making life difficult for Yudo by creating ice spears everywhere, while telling him that he is guaranteed victory as long as he can outlast his acceleration skill. Yudo admits that he has no chance at defeating Raven with his strength. But it turns out that he has a plan in mind. Raven can sense this, but he makes fun of Yudo, telling him that no matter what he tries, he can see through all of his movements. At the same time, Yudo knows Raven's skills very well. And he knows that he just has to be wary of one, which is the recoil reverse. This is a skill that amplifies the force of an attack and returns it to the opponent. Uto knows that if Rei's power could have given him a boost, this also means the recoil will grow. Yu realizes that he is left with one option, which is to break through before Raven can activate the skill. Yuto then makes another daring move to close Raven down. Raven is shocked when he sees this, leaving him to wonder what sort of boost he is running on. Even Yuto admits that he doesn't know, which shows how incredible Rei's power is. Just as Yuto is about to reach Raven, Raven activates the recoil reverse skill and hits Yuto in the chest. Yuto is sent crashing into the wall, and as he coughs up blood, Raven mocks him, telling him that he's going to send him to the afterlife just like he did to Hashi. Just then, Rei's dagger comes flying at Raven from behind. He barely dodges the dagger, but it cuts his face before getting stuck in the wall. Raven screams at Rei, telling him not to interfere because his own turn is also coming. However, Raven didn't know that the dagger Rei threw was for Yuto. Before he turned around, Yuto had pulled out the dagger from the wall. Yuto pushes the dagger into Raven's chest while telling him that he learned how to use daggers from Rei. Raven coughs up blood before finally crashing to the ground. Seeing Raven on the ground, Yuto lets off a bright smile while talking about how he has managed to avenge his little brother. Images of his brother and their time flash through his head when he says this. With his revenge mission complete, the effect of the soul limit break skill also comes to an end. The system then tells Yo that his health has decreased due to the recoil. Yuto softly reveals how he wished he killed Raven with his own moves. Just as he is about to crash to the ground, Rei grabs him, telling him that the skill he used was his own power, not his skill. Yuto then asks about Jack and Chloe. Rei assures Yuto that the two are nothing to him because he has already taken care of them. Rei points to the two, and just as he said, he has beaten them into submission. Some minutes earlier, Jack and Chloe had expressed their displeasure about how confident Rei is in looking away from them. This was when Rei finally turned back to check on the two, because he totally forgot that he was fighting them. Just then, Jack activates a space skill called the Death Aura, which gives him the chance to unleash an attack skill. Chloe being the sneaky old man, that he also attacks Rei from behind. Chloe teases Rei, asking him if he can dodge midair with nothing to stand on. Surprisingly, Cloak's attack misses and the dagger impales Jack instead. Before Chloe knows what is happening, Rei appears behind him with a knife to his throat, telling him that he is an idiot for throwing away his weapon. Rai then cuts his throat too. And when Yudo hears the story, he realizes that Rai was way too strong for the two. Yudo then urges Rai to allow him to rest a bit because he won't be able to move for a while. Rai assures Yudo that he is aware and he should take his time. Suddenly, a dude carrying a digger in his hand shows up, expressing his surprise that Yudo actually defeated Raven. The moment Rai sees the dude, he realizes that the Dark Guild reinforcements showed up before the ones they are expecting from Wings of Genesis. Standing behind the new dude are a bunch of Dark Guild members. But all Rai is seeing is money. As he gets into a combat position, Rai admits that the dungeon is paying more than he expected. Moments later, Rai has taken all of the reinforcements out, and he is disappointed that they are not even strong. However, he is glad that even the weakest Dark Guild member carries the same amount of bounty. Not long after this, the Wings of Genesis finally arrive on the scene. And Rai takes off his mask since he is on familiar grounds. Tsukino commends Rai for the good job, saying she is impressed that only he and Utah were able to seal off the Dark Guild's base. Rai assures Tsukino that this is nothing, and Tsukino asks about Yudo. Rai casually points to where Yudo is lying, and when Tsukino turns to check on him, she realizes that the dude is badly beaten, showing just how intense the battle was. The healer then attends to Yudo, while Tsukino tells Rai that the Wings of Justice will now assist in the base lockdown. One dude wearing his baseball hat backwards suggests that they just barge into the base and wipe out the Dark Guild since they are all criminals instead of opting for a base lockdown. The bald-headed dude also agrees with the dude in the hat, saying they have the numbers and the strength to wipe out the Dark Guild in one sweep. However, Tsukino denies their suggestion, reminding them that Rai is in charge of the operation, and disobeying his orders is highly prohibited. Just then, a ginger-haired lady, Hashino Yori, from the guild tells the Baldy and everyone to fall in line and follow Tsukino's orders. An argument ensues between the two, and Rai cuts in, telling them that the enemy's strength lies in their numbers. Rai says they have to stick to fighting in the yard if they want to prevent the enemy from using the numbers. Rai tells the two dudes that they are free to charge in if they disagree with him, but he assures them that he is not going to take responsibility for their deaths. The two then decide to ask if there is anyone who agrees with their plan. But to their dismay, no one is willing to bet against Rai's words. Rai analyzes the situation and walks up to Yudo, telling him to keep an eye on the two. Once this is settled, they are told to send the captured prisoners to the guild. The guild then starts cooking and having fun in the yard while waiting for the Dark Guild members to come out. 3 hours later, none of them has made an appearance, and Rai says they must have gotten wind of the reinforcements coming in. Nonetheless, Rai says they can actually starve them out. And when they finally get desperate to break the siege, the team is going to wipe them out, while the allies are enjoying good food outside. The enemies inside the house are trapped and starving. Moments later, Tsukino tells the team that their time of rest might soon come to an end because two suspicious individuals are heading their way. The Baldy believes that the two are just scouts and not combat players. But Rai disagrees. He explains that in player versus player combat, quality actually overwhelms quantity. With this, he lets them know that 2 skilled fighters are more troublesome than 100 weaklings. Rai asks Yudo if he has any idea who the two are. Yu mentions that the two are definitely higher up stronger than Raven. Basically, there are 3 of them: Gamma, Beta, and Alpha. However, aside from the fact that he knows that they are strong, Rai says he doesn't know much about them. Tsukino shows Yudo footage of the two, which was sent by the reconnaissance team. But Yudo confesses that he doesn't know if they are the ones because he has never seen them before. However, judging by the situation, he is convinced that they are Beta and Gamma. When Rai hears this, he figures out that there is someone else hiding in the castle, and they are probably planning a pincer attack. Tsukino then makes the plan saying she is going to handle one, while Rai handles one and the last one is handled by everyone else. It urges the group to be careful, because he has only met Alpha once before. But he can categorically say there is no one as evil as him. Rai then asks Tsukino if the reward for stronger enemies is higher. But Tsukino says no, reminding him that the reward per person has been fixed. Rai is disappointed to hear this because he believes that with this, it is much more profitable to take down weaker enemies. Once they have all come to an agreement, they prepare for the assault from the two incoming enemies. Suddenly, the group notices that the animals in the area are all scurrying for safety, which is pretty weird. Tsukino is the first to notice that something is wrong, and she screams at the group to fall back. Out of nowhere, a large beam hits the yard, destroying everything in its path, creating a fiery crater in the ground. Even though they were warned by Tsukino, some still got caught in the beam because of how destructive it was. Those who are injured are immediately attended to by the medical team. Gamma and Beta finally show their faces, and they are disappointed that the group wasn't wiped out by the powerful beam. The moment Tsukino spots them, she concludes that the two are pretty dangerous and would not be easy to deal with. Yuito suggests that he take on the dual-wielding dude, but Tsukino tells him not to worry. Tsukino then leaps into the air, and she unleashes a powerful fireball of her own at the two. With the amount of fire that Tsukino just generated, she believes that she has taken care of the two. Meanwhile, Raph is lying on the roof behind them, and he is waiting for the right time to join the fight. While Tsukino is still boasting about how destructive her fire is, the sword-wielding dude on white comes charging at her through the fire. He leaps at Tsukino and aims to cut her head off, but Tsukino is able to block the attack at the right time. The dual-wielder is also charging in at Tsukino, aiming to catch her off guard, but Yori comes in just in time to block the dude. The dual-wielder is surprised that there are skilled fighters among the group. Tsukino knows that she would have died, and she thanks Yori for coming clutch at the right time to save her. The dude in white laughs at Tsukino, telling her that she would have been dead if not for Yori's intervention. The dude trash-talks Tsukino, saying the Transcendent 10 are just a bunch of weaklings. He says they might be capable against monsters, but they actually lack real battle experience. However, Tsukino smiles at the dude, telling him not to underestimate the Transcendent 10 because when it comes to battle experience, they are way above the likes of him. The dude then leaps backward, telling Tsukino that she is getting it wrong. He lets her know that the battle experience he is talking about revolves around killing people, not monsters. The dude then takes a deep breath before activating a weird skill. Tsukino has no idea what is coming for her. And before she knows it, she gets hit with a strange attack that the dude released from his ugly mouth. Tsukino screams in pain and falls to her knees while wondering what just hit her. Before she knows it, she realizes that her vision is already blurry. And this is when the system informs her that she has been poisoned. The healers panic when they see their guild master in this state, and they quickly swing into action to heal her, but this only makes things worse. Tsukino screams in pain as the poison spreads further into her body. The healers are shocked when they see this, and the dude who poisoned her tells the healers that their powers are useless because there is no healer strong enough to cure his poison. When Tsukino hears this, she only becomes more motivated to fight, and she tells the dude that she just has to finish the fight before the poison spreads. Tsukino unleashes another wave of destructive flames at the dude. But the dude easily dodges this. He leaps over the fire and lunges towards Tsukino, telling her that she only has flashy moves because she is used to fighting monsters only. The dude gets closer to Tsukino, aiming to land a hit, but Tsukino dodges and returns the favor with a counterattack. A ball of fire emerges again, but the dude dodges just like before while confidently telling Tsukino that her attempts are useless. He mentions that he has a skill that nullifies fire. But unknown to him, another member of the team has used the fire as a cover to get behind him. Before he knows it, the dude slams a big hammer into him, sending him to the ground. While he is still trying to get himself together from this, 3 other members of the guild charge in at once. The dude tries running, but their long-range attacks catch up to him, leaving a big explosion. Tsukino smiles while telling the dude his mistake. Tsukino finally loses mobility, and she crashes to the ground while her guild members rush over to her. Thankfully, the dude who poisoned her died from the last attack, which ultimately removed the poison he inflicted on Tsukino. The hammer guy carries Tsukino up, telling her that the distraction spell worked really well. And Tsukino agrees to this, while adding that their training paid off too. She mentions that the strength of the guild is not in their individual strengths, but as a collective. Meanwhile, Yudo and Azori are currently taking on the dual wielder, and he is getting pushed back. He is surprised that Yudo is getting one over him, since he knows that he is stronger than Mouse. However, he soon figures out that Yudo is able to corner him thanks to Yori's influence on the fight. However, he is also confused because the information he has on Yori is that her class is an elite thief, and her physical ability is average at best. Even though she is Tsukino's close aide, there have been no notable achievements for her. He starts to wonder if there was a flaw in the information that they got from the spy, because he can't even land a hit on Yori. He initially thought he was the one controlling the game, but he is constantly being drawn into Mouse's attack without range, without even realizing it. He is totally short of words, because he never thought combat ability was this remarkable. Realizing that he is already getting exhausted from the battle, he makes a desperate move to put some distance between himself and the two. Suddenly, he gets caught in the soul thread, shocking him. He knows that from the information they got from the spy, Yori shouldn't have this skill, since Rei is the one wielding such skills. He is left questioning why Yori has it, but before he knows it, Yori activates the flame array, which ultimately burns the dude to nothing, causing him to scream to his death. After defeating the dude, the supposed Rei is seen in the back, calling Yori Rei. This confuses everyone because they actually have no idea what is happening. Just then, Iori deactivates a skill known as visual exchange, leaving a bright light that almost blinds those who are watching. By the time the process is done, Iori has her face back and Rei has his original face back, too. Iori talks about how nervous she was while pretending that she was Rei. The Baldy is totally confused when he sees this, because he can't believe that Iori just transformed into Rai. Iori mentions that she has a skill called visual exchange that allows her to switch faces with Rai. Since the guild specializes in dungeon strategies, they decided to let a pro like Rei handle PvP battles. Rei smiles, saying it was all Tsukuno and Iori's idea, but he is glad that it worked out well. Once they are done marveling at what the visual exchange skill can do, Rei turns to the roof and tells Alpha to come down because it is high time he stops looking down on them. He urges Rai not to get cocky because they are a bunch of weaklings whose fates have been decided. He assures Rei and his subordinates that the yard is going to become their mass grave. The dude then leaps over them and unleashes powerful firepower from his sword. This forces the group to scatter, and Rai tells Tsukino and Yudo to take everyone to a safe spot. Before Rei knows it, Alpha has hurled his sword at him, forcing him to leap backwards yet again. However, Rei soon realizes that he has to deal with a bunch of swords coming at him at insane speed. Rei is forced to run while Alpha mocks him, telling him that he has no escape route. Surprisingly, Rei is able to dodge most of the swords and block those that he can. When Alpha sees this, he commends Rei, saying he is really an incredible player. Meanwhile, Tsukino and the others are freaking out about Alpha's multiple arms, which is why he is able to handle a bunch of swords at the same time. Rei, on the other hand, is not a rookie, and he knows that Alpha is able to do this thanks to the Spirit Berserker's invincible hands. This is a skill that attacks the opponent with the arms of a spirit duplicate. And because of how powerful the skill is, it actually drains stamina rapidly. Rai then tells Tsukino to back him up to make sure that the enemy healers are not able to help Alpha. Tsukino acknowledges this and tells her long-range combat team to aim for the castle. When Alpha realizes that Rai and his team are planning to drag him into a battle of attrition, he tells Rai that his plan is useless. Alpha proves his point by hurling a long-range attack at Rai, forcing him on the run again. Rai even gets cut in the face while trying to make an escape. Ray knows that the Berserker's spirit is considered to be one of the strongest skills because their number of attacks is always overwhelming. Alpha soon starts mocking Rai for running, asking him if all he can do is run away. Even Tsukino and the others are stunned that Rai is getting pushed back, which just shows how crazy the dude's power is. However, Yudo tells them to look closely because he doesn't think Rai is getting pushed back. Yudo explains that Ray is confidently blocking all of the attacks that could be fatal. On the other hand, Ray knows that the Berserker consumes stamina as the fight continues. But the moment they ease up, he believes that they won't be able to block his attacks. At this point, Alpha is already getting frustrated too. And he angrily unleashes a bunch of swords at Ray, telling him that it is time they settle the fight. To make sure Ray has no chance whatsoever, Alpha overloads the spirits and unleashes at least 100 swords at Ray at once. With the swords coming at him, Rai decides to leap into the air. Most of the attacks hit the ground, causing devastating damage. But Rai does something even crazier. While in the air, he activates a skill called Soul Serpent, and a giant snake appears, which he stands on. Rai gladly tells the snake that he has a bulkload of food that it can eat. But Alpha doesn't think the snake has a chance against him. Alpha hurls his swords at Rai again, but the healers quickly step up to help Ray. However, they are soon left distraught when they realize that the healing can't keep up because Alpha is causing too much damage. Alpha uses this opportunity to boast about the spirit's power, while telling Rai that he has no chance against him without a main class. Tsukino then notices that Ray's health hasn't decreased, and she tells the healing team to keep going. Suddenly, Alpha realizes that he might be screwed because out of nowhere, the initial one serpent has multiplied into scary numbers. Rai smiles evil at Alpha, telling him that he is the one who provided the food for the snakes to multiply. Rai then tells the snakes that their main dish is Alpha, while pointing to him to make sure that they don't mistake him for someone else. Alpha cannot believe that Rai just referred to him as food, and this pisses him off. He angrily unleashes a new skill to create a spirit territory with the determination to make Rai regret the words he said. This creates multiple attack points that take out all of the other snakes before converging on Ray, who is standing on the last snake. Ray figures out that Alpha just used a skill that increases the speed and power of arm generation at the cost of reduced range. But this is a fighting style that burns through really quickly. With this type of short burst attack, Ray believes that Alpha won't be able to last long enough to defeat the snakes. Out of nowhere, a spear comes flying at Ray from behind. But Yudo jumps in to cut down the attack, and he looks really pissed while doing this. Yudo stares down at the culprits responsible for the surprise attack, and it turns out to be the Baldy and the dude in a hat from earlier. Yudo immediately goes after them with rage, telling them that they have finally revealed their true colors, and it is time that they are punished. They try to run away, but Rai catches up to them and knocks them both out. With Rai watching deal with the traitors, Alpha tries to sneak up on him, but Rai easily dodges the surprise attack. With Alpha not expecting Rai to dodge the strike, he leaves himself open for an attack, and Ray uses the best of it. Ray lands a counterattack by pushing his dagger into Alpha's chest, shocking him. Alpha crashes to the ground, and as he bleeds out, he starts asking Rai how he was able to block the last attack when it was supposed to be the perfect surprise attack. Rai quickly corrects his delusion, telling him that there is nothing perfect about the attack because he already knew that the Baldy and the Hat Guy were spies from the start. Alpha coughs up blood while asking Rai if he really thinks he can survive after turning the Dark Guild against himself. And Rai calls Alpha's attention to the reality of things. He reminds him that with him, Gamma and Beta gone, the Dark Guild's main forces have been mostly taken out. Ray boldly reveals that what is left is to enjoy the spoils left behind. After the enemies are defeated, they take the head count. And since it is 1 million yen per person, get 452 million yen for the 452 people defeated. Rai also packs all the treasure found inside the building. And it was transferred to the gold farm headquarters. Ray commends Tsukino for the good work and tells her that she is free to take anything left in the castle. Tsukino cannot believe that Ray is seriously saying this after taking even the tiniest treasure that can be found in the building. Ray tries to console her, saying he found some strange white powder left behind. But Tsukino quickly tells him that she is not interested in his trash white powder. Later on, Ray is at the office when tells him that the government reward has been transferred. Rai is relieved to hear this, and Rumi adds that in recognition of his work, the government has assigned an assistant to the guild. Ray is not entirely pleased with this because he doesn't want the government monitoring his movements. Room is not surprised, because she was already expecting Rai to say this. Rai how they are supposed to liquidate the treasures that they got from the Dark Guild. One of the guild members suggests that they sell them at a precious metals exchange, but tells him that this is impossible since the treasure was obtained from bad guys. Moments later, a strange lady enters the office asking after Ray. Rai scornfully asks the lady who she is, and the lady is surprised that Ray doesn't recognize her. She reminds Ray that she was the attendant whom he met during the rank certification exam. Rai lets her know that he is not really interested in remembering things that don't make him money. She tries to play it cool and finally introduces herself as Saki Sakuma. It was after she introduced herself that Rumi explained to Ray that she was the one from the rank exam reception desk. After explaining to him like a baby, Ray finally has an idea who she is, and he asks Saki if she is there to make him money. Misaki nervously says yes, telling Rai that she has been assigned by the Japanese government as his assistant. Basically, she is a free assistant that he gets to use however he likes because she will save on labor costs. Rai lets Saki know that he has no need for her because he already has more than enough hands on deck. Rai points to the cash cows, telling Masaki that he has plenty of free laborers already. However, Saki is not about to give up, and she lets Rai know that she will do anything. Kyuki and the others are already feeling threatened just from her presence and her vow to do anything. Misaki assures Ray that she can do anything from cleaning the office to laundering untraceable assets. She is confident that she can even procure explosives and weapons while covering up illegal activities. She tells Rai that as long as it is something useful, she can do it. Ray then asks her if she will be able to launder gold bars with no traceable origin. Saki takes a moment to think about it, and she tells Rai that she would have customs seize it as contraband and sell it off before funneling the money back to Rai under the table. Misaki lets Ray know that if she processes the funds as a special commission from the player association, it shouldn't appear suspicious. Misaki stares at Rai with a gold digger expression, and she asks him if she should try what she just said. Rai expresses his concerns, saying he doesn't trust her. Misaki tries to repair her image, asking Rai if he will collect 6 billion as an advanced payment for the gold so he can give her a trial. Misaki knows that the gold's value will be higher, but she assures Ray that she is going to transfer the difference later. Ray is surprised to hear this, and he asks Saki if she is authorized to do all she just said. Saki replies that she has been authorized to manage funds up to the set amount without having to ask for permission. She urges Rai to give her a minute while she figures it out. And Ray immediately whips out a timer to show Misaki that she is on the clock. Misaki gets down to business on her tablet, and after working her magic, she tells Rai that 5 billion yen has been sent by the player association. By doing this, Misaki confidently walks up to Rai, telling him that she is pretty useful. Later on, Saki is able to exchange the gold too, and she informs Rai that the difference is 1.2 billion, which has been transferred to him. She shows him the report, and after checking it out, Ray admits that Saki is quite useful. Rai then tells her that he has one question for her before he officially invites her into the guild. Rai asks her what the government's true objective is for assigning her to his guild. Saki has no choice but to be honest, since the truth will obviously come out very soon. She mentions that the government is trying to counter the recruitment from foreign countries. Apparently, talented layers are being bought over by countries worldwide. Once he understands the situation, Rai tells Saki that if he can't make money in Japan, he will definitely leave for another country. To prevent this, Rai tells Misaki to do her best to make sure he earns as much money as he can. Saki smiles nervously while assuring Rai that she would do this. Moments later, dumps a mountain of files on Saki's table to sort. She also tells her to handle the selection of missions for the 3rd week of the month. Without complaining, Saki accepts the roles. One of the guild members mentions how effective Rumi is when it comes to assigning roles. And Rai reveals that this was the reason he chose her as the guild master raster in the first place. Suddenly, Saki notices something strange, and Rai asks her what the issue is. She reveals that she was checking the mission database, but there hasn't been a single new mission added in the past 4 days. She mentions that there's usually some fluctuation in mission occurrences, but she finds it strange that there are no missions at all. Even Ray is shocked when he hears this, and he tells Saki to quickly confirm with the government. Saki follows Ray's instructions and whips out her magic staff. Saki then activates a remote telepathy skill, which shoots out a fierce energy into the sky, emitting waves for Saki to connect to. Once she gets a response, she tells Rai that the Player Association, Geospatial Information Authority, and the Cabinet Office have all responded. Apparently, in the past 4 days, there has been no single new mission in Japan. In fact, the same thing is happening in every other country. When Ray hears this, he tells Saki that this is the prelude to a massive mission. He immediately tells Saki to prioritize claiming all high reward missions that are currently available because for a while they might not see any regular missions. Soon afterward, everyone gets the notification of a new large-scale mission called the Trial of the Waterfall. The time limit on this is 90 days, and they are to defeat the boss within the time limit or the whole of Asia will be destroyed. When the Gold Farm Guild sees this, asks Rai what the plan is, and Rai suggests that they continue tackling the smaller missions in the meantime, since the Trial of the Waterfall covers the whole of Asia. Rai says there are many countries involved, and organizing rewards and sponsors will take time. Rai tells the guild that they are going to leave the mission until they have organized the rewards. In addition, Rai says continental missions occur simultaneously worldwide and, depending on the amount, the guild might abandon Asia to focus elsewhere. Shocked to hear this, and she reminds Rai that if they abandon Asia, Japan will perish, leaving her to ask Rai if he is willing to let that happen. Rai evilly replies that everything depends on the reward. Rai then tells Saki to start preparation and accepting the large-scale missions because they will be competing with guilds worldwide. He adds that they should start selecting potential partners because the guild doesn't have enough numbers to take on a trial. Even though Genesis Wings isn't a bad option, he still believes that there will be cheaper guilds out there that are ready to cooperate. 1 week after this, Saki shows up telling Ray that the mission details have been released and the reward is 70 billion yen. Apparently, the mission occurred in 5 different locations, which are America, Africa, Europe, Asia, and Australia. Apparently, in all of these, only Asia and Australia are open for private contracts. Ray is impressed by the reward, and he tells Saki that securing the contract will depend on reputation since the reward is already fixed. Saki lets Ray know that it is actually a good decision to have partnered with Genesis Wings because having Tsukino, who is one of the 10 Transcendents, is a big advantage, although to be fair, they were also the cheapest option out there. Gold Farm will get 70%, while Genesis Wings will get 30%. Rai then asks Saki if she thinks the guild will be able to secure at least one of these contracts, and Saki replies that it is hard to say. She explains that in terms of mission completions, both Genesis Wings and Gold Farm rank around 100 globally. When talking about numbers, They are considered mid-tier compared to Chinese and American guilds. Apparently, most large guilds focus on sheer numbers, taking on low-level missions at once. On the other hand, Gold Farm and Genesis Wings focus on elite members instead of numbers. Misaki then mentions that the identity of the number 1 player remains unknown. But there are rumors of an unknown player in Thailand clearing a national-level mission. However, the international meeting to finalize who the contract goes to is in 2 weeks, and Misaki assures Rai that until then, they are going to gather information and prepare. 2 weeks later, at the International Conference Hall, Rai and his subordinates show up for the final bidding. Masaki tells Rai that only 4 teams are currently in play. And Rai is surprised that there aren't more than 4. Misaki tells him that there were more than 10 guilds that initially expressed interest, but they couldn't gather enough members. It is well known that for large-scale missions, the number of capable players is limited. Tsukino buys into this, saying it was pretty hard for them to even gather volunteers. Tsukino asks Ray how many people Gold Farm is bringing, and he reveals that he is including everyone in his guild in the mission. Ray then asks Saki if they stand a chance against the assembled teams. Apparently there is Bloi Vogel and Black Dragon competing against them. Misaki mentions Vogel is an internationally renowned guild, and they have declared that they will take the Australian mission. However, as for the Asia mission, they are going to be competing one-on-one with Black Dragon. Although Rumi believes that they will be able to win easily because Black Dragon doesn't even have a record of clearing national-level missions. Saki is a bit skeptical about the whole thing. Moments later, they announce that the Blau Vogel has gotten the Australian mission, and the host tells everyone that they will be moving to the Asian continent mission. The host mentions that the floor will hear the presentation from the Japanese team first. Tsukino then stands up to represent the team, and everyone on the team wishes her luck. After laying out why the Gold Farm and Genesis Wings Guild should get the trial, Tsukuno gets off the stage, and she receives a resounding applause. Saki and Ray smile at each other because they believe that they have the edge, since the response from the floor is quite good. However, Ray is worried about how Black Dragon is going to present their case. Moments later, the leader of the Black Dragon Guild, Dragon King, stands up to present their case. The first thing he does is to piss on Tsukuno's presentation, calling it an extremely dull presentation. He boldly tells the committee that he has something more interesting to tell them to prevent them from falling asleep. The dude then points to the healers in Tsukuno's guild, saying that they are all weak points in the team. This shocks the healers, and the dude continues by mentioning the research that they have supposedly conducted. He mentions that over 70% of party wipeouts revolve around healers. Because of this, the dude believes that it would be better if they got rid of healers. The Dragon King says the healers and other fragile classes have no room in the team because their party consists of sword masters, staff masters, and fist masters. He claims that these are classes that can all protect themselves using the aura that surrounds their bodies. Basically, as long as they have aura, they can't get injured, which means that the use of healers is not needed. The Dragon King confidently says his party has no weaknesses, while adding that this was the same strategy that they used in clearing tough missions during their days in Prophecy Online. He admits that they have no experience with the trial of the waterfall, but he believes that it can be cleared using the same methods. The reception in the room immediately brightens up, and Ray lets his team know that they are done for. Tsukino cuts in, telling Rai that she doesn't think a party without healers will be able to conquer a continent-level mission. She asks for Ray's opinion, and Ray tells her that it depends on the mission. Rai admits that, when it comes to the trial of the abyss, the Black Dragon strategy might actually be the best approach. However, he lets Tsukino know that the strategy is completely wrong for the trial of the waterfall, because they are definitely going to be wiped out. Tsukino is shocked when Ray says this, leaving her to wonder why he said so. After the Dragon King is done presenting, the host tells everyone that a review meeting will take place, and the results will be announced momentarily. Rumi nervously asks Rai if he thinks that they are going to get the mission, since they look like the better team to handle it. Rai replies that he can't say, but he is sure that whatever happens, it can't be a bad outcome for them. Just then, Dragon King walks up to them to gloat, calling Rai and his team losers. He tells Rai and his team that he didn't think they would apply, while consoling them on the loss. Tsukino screams at the dude, reminding him that the results haven't been announced yet. However, the Dragon King lets Tsukino know that the results have already been decided even before the meeting. Ray casually asks the Dragon King if he bribed the board, and he smiles without giving a definite answer. The dragon tells Tsukino and her team that the whole thing is a blessing in disguise, because they can at least avoid dying a pointless death. This pisses off, and she tells the Dragon King that he is arrogant and dull. But even so, she admits that his guild has cleared missions and protected towns where people live. Because of this, she tells the Dragon King that it would be a big loss for his guild to be wiped out by a reckless attempt, and she suggests that he withdraw. This gets to the Dragon King, and he screams at Tsukino for underestimating them, assuring Tsukino that they have no intention of backing down. The dude loses his composure and prepares to attack, but Tsukino is ready for whatever he throws at her. Suddenly, Rai appears beside the dude and grabs his hand, telling him to calm down. The Dragon King is shocked because he didn't even sense Rai until he got close to him. Rai then apologizes for how Tsukino behaved, and he urges the Dragon King to ignore Tsukino's request to back down. Tsukino is shocked to hear this, and she asks Rai what he is trying to do. Rai is forced to call Tsukino's attention to the recruitment terms. In the terms, it is written that if the contracted party loses its ability to clear the mission due to casualties or other reasons, the second choice party will take over the contract. In such cases, the reward amount will increase according to the remaining mission time. After pointing this out, Rai tells Tsukino that they are only going to get paid more. The Dragon King laughs this off, saying a guild led by a woman has no chance whatsoever. The Dragon King mocks Rai, telling Rai that the committee has already decided and his guild will be taking the contract. He then teases Rai, saying he should have let his guild win so that he could watch them get wiped out. Just then, the announcements come in that a decision has been made. Just as expected, the Black Dragon is announced as the contracted party for the trial of the waterfall. When Rai sees this, Rai congratulates the Dragon King, telling him to take his time to fail because the longer it takes, the more the remaining time inflates the reward. However, the Dragon King is confident that he and his team can get it done. When Rai and his team return to their control room, Tsukino asks Rai what they are supposed to do. She asks if they should head back to Japan. But Rai says they will be heading to China because they have finished all of their contracted missions. Rai wants them to stay near the location of the trial of the waterfall and wait for the Black Dragon to fail. Rai turns to Misaki, telling her to book cheap flights heading to China for the team. But Misaki says she's going to book safe ones instead. Suddenly, a yellow-haired girl rushes into the room, urging the team to calm down because she has a request for them. Rai watches in disgust before asking the girl who she is. She reveals that she is Marie, and she is from Blauvogel. Tsukino notices that Marie is struggling to speak Japanese, and she urges her to speak her native language because they have the language skill, which makes it easy for them to understand her. Marie thanks Tsukino for the warm reception and says she will just speak German instead. Marie then reveals something shocking, telling the team that they would like them to take over their mission. Misaki is shocked to hear this because she knows that Vogel has 3 members from the Transcendent. 10, which means they shouldn't have an issue clearing the Australian mission. Rai knows that this is the reason why the guild accepted the mission. But he is pretty sure that something else happened after the contract was signed. Marie confirms this, saying that they are in a bit of a bind. The moment Rai hears that Marie and her guild are in trouble, he decides to teach her a proverb in Japanese. Marie asks him what the proverb is, and he quotes that even hell's judgments depend on money, which he claims is the most famous Japanese proverb. Marie hears this and realizes that Ray has no issue with taking over the mission as long as he gets paid. Not long after this, Marie takes the team to her brother, Daniel Keller, who is the Guild Master of Vogel. Sugo also introduces herself as the Guild Master of Genesis Wings, but Ray simply says he is from Gold Farm. Daniel then tells the team that they want them to take over the Australian mission while assuring them that they are going to officially notify the UN of their withdrawal. Ray is surprised that they are just dumping the mission on them, and he demands to know what happened. Daniel decides to be honest, since the truth will eventually come out. Daniel reveals that the US has poached 2 out of the 3 members from the 10 transcendents that they have. Daniel says he has always heard that the United States was poaching players for money, but he can't believe that they took 2 of their players just when they took the Australian mission. Rai is impressed that Daniel has been able to figure out that 1 Heil player is not enough for the mission. Daniel confirms this, saying he believes that at least 2 members of the Transcendent 10 are necessary for the mission. He talks about how they are not ready to put valuable resources at risk, and Ray concludes that the dude is quite cautious. However, Rai has no reason to complain since he will be getting billions in rewards. Rai says the mission is doable, and he asks Tsukino what she thinks about it. Tsukino expresses her concern, saying that they can't participate because the Genesis Wings members are fearful of continent-level dungeons. She reveals that even for the Trial of Earth, they had to beg them to protect Japan, which they reluctantly agreed to. Tsukino apologizes to the people of Australia, but lets Daniel know that they can't release their members for missions outside Asia. Ray, on the other hand, tells Daniel that his guild, Gold Farm, will participate in the mission, but they don't have enough people for a continent-level trial. He mentions that when it comes to the Australian mission, which is the trial of the desert, numbers are really crucial. Rai says that they are going to need at least 200 B-rank players, but his guild can't produce such a large number of players, since Vogel is a mercenary group. Rai asks Daniel if he will be willing to lend them around 150 players for 10% of the reward. Daniel replies that they don't just lend out players, because they always include commanders to manage risks, oversee retreats, and support staff for logistics. After all of his explanations, Daniel asks him if he is saying it is impossible. But Daniel says they are going to need at least 200 million yen to mobilize a decent force for a joint operation. Ray casually replies that this is too expensive, while claiming that Daniel is trying to extort them. Rumi cannot believe that Rai is talking about extortion when he only gave Genesis Wings 30% when teaming up with them. Daniel then continues by saying missions cost money. But Rai doesn't buy this idea. He believes that equipment is self-funded and salaries come from 10 to 30% of the rewards. With a stern voice, Ray tells Daniel that he actually doesn't need a grand army. Marie then turns to her brother, telling him that Rai and his team might not even need expensive equipment since they are strong enough. Since this is the case, she believes that taking 20% of the reward will be profitable. Daniel confirms this, but asks Marie if she thinks that the team is actually strong. Daniel says he is pretty sure that Sukuno and Genesis Wing are strong, but he can't say the same for Gold Farm. Daniel lets his sister know that Gold Farm is a guild without a single member from the Transcendent 10. Marie then tells Daniel that she is pretty sure that the team is pretty strong, especially Ray. Marie confidently tells Daniel that Ray is stronger than her, and Rai agrees with her. Daniel, on the other hand, doesn't want to believe this as he tells Rai that Marie is quite strong. Rai assures Daniel that he is aware of Marie's position because she is obviously the last member of the 10 Transcendents that didn't get poached. Apparently, Marie is ranked 7th among the Transcendent 10. Marie smiles when she hears this and says Rai is right. Suddenly, Marie activates her skill, and she attacks Rai with thorned vines. Rai is able to dodge the vines, and he even grabs one of them, which he uses to drag Marie to the floor. Daniel watches in horror as his sister is easily defeated. And Marie uses this to explain to her brother that she launched a surprise attack on Ray, but he still dodged it. In fact, he even had the strength to pull her to the ground without using any skill. Daniel, on the other hand, is horrified because he is worried that things could have gotten worse if Rai had been hit. Marie then tells her brother that it definitely wouldn't have hit Rai because anyone who couldn't dodge her strike would stand no chance against the vermilion spider that was defeated in the Trial of Earth. Marie mentions that the ones who cleared the Trial or Earth were Genesis wings. But she is pretty sure that it was a lie because she has a thing about judging people. Marie cracks open the truth, saying she is pretty sure that Tsukino wasn't the one who cleared the Trial of Earth, because the one who really cleared it was Ray. With a confident smile, Marie tells Daniel that they have nothing to worry about as long as Ray is with them. Soon afterward, Rai joins Daniel and Marie at the trial site where the requested mercenaries are waiting. The mercs are all surprised that Daniel is handing over command to Ray, who is a nobody from Gold Farm. Most of them believe that Rai being the commander of the operation is just a formality, because they are only trying to make up for the defectors who got poached because of money. Daniel then climbs the stage to inform the players that Vogel and Gold Farm will be conducting a joint operation, and he introduces Rai to the squad, telling them that he is going to be serving as commander for the operation. Rai then takes the reins, and he tells the players that his first and most important priority is to make sure that no one dies in the battle to come. He tells them to prioritize saving lives if they become uncertain about their decisions. Most of the players don't believe in Ray's idealistic approach, believing that they can't conquer a continental-level dungeon that way. Basically, their reward has been decided at $5 million without the expenses for Vogel. However, it appears that for every death on Vogel's side, $10 million will be deducted from the reward. Rai doesn't want to lose anyone because of this. Rai informs them that the desert trial is vastly bigger in scope than the usual trials, and the moment they move further ahead, monsters would most likely start showing up. Rai then repeats himself, saying, "Safety must be prioritized no matter what." After giving his speech, he tells the squad to move out. And as they get closer to the trial site, they suddenly feel the ground shake as if there is an earthquake. Suddenly, a monster comes dashing toward the squad, and the team immediately rolls out cannons to engage the monster. They fire a bunch of shells at the monster that sets it on fire. But even with the first wave of fire, they are not able to take down the monster. The squad is forced to continue firing cannons at the monster, and even the players with long-range capabilities join the battle. While they are busy doing this, Rai is thinking of something else. He soon asks the squad leader how much each of the shells that is being fired costs. The dude mentions that he is not sure about the amount, but they are using the cheapest shells since they were instructed not to use expensive weapons. The squad leader reveals that the contents of the shells are just 5 franc coins. And the moment Rai hears this, he contacts Saki, who is back at the control room. Rai then tells her to check how much Vogel's mortar shells cost, while informing her that they are filled with 5 franc coins. Saki then gets on her calculator to get the cost, and she informs Rai that the base shells cost around 300,000 yen. However, when they factor in the Swiss franc coins that are packed inside, the value jumps to about 1 million yen per shell. Ray almost faints when he hears how much the shells cost, and they are busy firing them in high numbers at the monsters. Ray quickly tells the squad leader that he and his team will handle the monster from that moment forward. He tells the dude to report the locations to them, and the squad leader does as instructed. Rai is informed that 3 monsters just appeared in front of them, and Rai leaps toward the monsters. Rai easily takes out the monsters, but Rai only sees a stingy dude who can't spare shells, costing just 1 million. Daniel says saving money is nice, but at the same time, using skills would cause cooldowns. Because of this, he believes that the main players should save their skills for really strong enemies. Marie then tells her brother that Ray is not using skills. Daniel is shocked to hear this because he can't believe that he took down such large monsters without skills. Marie then reminds her brother that she already told him that Ray is pretty strong. Suddenly, Daniel notices that a monster is closing in on Rai from behind. And he might not be able to react because it is already close. Out of nowhere, Kuki and his team appear to take down the monsters. Rai joins them in taking out the monsters. And with a smile on their faces, Gold Farm players decimate the monsters. When Marie sees this, she tells her brother that Rai is not the only elite player in the guild, because the rest are just as capable as him. Daniel has no choice but to agree with his sister. And he expresses his shock that an unknown guild from the Far East is pretty strong. Daniel is forced to admit that as long as Ray and his guys are there, they have nothing to worry about. Marie notices her brother's mood, and she urges him to calm down, assuring him that his time will come too, because the desert trial has just begun. As they continue moving forward, the squad figures out that they are already getting close to the trial core. The squad leader reveals that the anti-sandstorm combat equipment is ready, and it is time they prepare for entry. Since they are about to enter a scary sandstorm, Daniel screams out instructions to the team, telling them to form up into the entry formation just like they trained. Ray lets them know that, from that moment forward, lack of visibility will mean that instructions will not be entirely detailed. Rai tells the Gold Farm players to protect the members of the Vogel Guild because he doesn't even want a single one to die. Rai adds that the team should keep their eyes open because with the player defense stats, the sandstorm shouldn't hurt them that much. With the instructions already laid out, Rai and his team are the first to dive into the sandstorm. The Vogel players are left stunned that they are about to enter such a scary sandstorm, but the squad leader motivates them, telling them that if a small guild from the Far East isn't scared, they don't have the right to be scared either. With this, the team starts their push into the sandstorm, and they soon realize that the insides are really dark. Even though they are maintaining a straight line format, two dullards end up getting separated from the main squad. Suddenly, they run into a scary monster. They scream at the squad to form up for combat. But this is when it dawns on the two fools that they are all alone. Even though they are scared, they conclude that they have no choice but to fight. The two run in opposite directions, trying to catch the monster at its weak point. One unleashes iron needles at the monster to try to block its visibility, while the other one leaps at the monster with a sword, intending to cut its head off. However, the monster catches on to their plan, and it swings its hand at the attacking dude. He gets thrown into the distance, and his friend screams at him, asking him if he is fine. Even though he is bleeding, he tells his colleague that he is good. Suddenly, the monster leaps toward them, ready to turn them into food. The two scream in fear, believing that all hope is lost. But the monster suddenly loses its head. The two turned around to see that they had just been saved by Rai and his squad. Rai is not happy with the fact that he almost lost two assets, and he tells his squad to make sure that there are no gaps in the defense network. Rai tells his squad that the Vogel players are not capable like them, so they have to protect them. The injured players are quickly attended to by Rai's healers, and he tells them to think of the Vogel players as a $10 million bundle of cash, which is why they have to protect them really carefully. The entire squad takes his instructions to heart and assures him that they are going to do as told. Daniel then orders that they reform the formation, and those who can't defend themselves should form a tight cluster. Marie adds that in whatever they do, they should not lose sight of the comrades next to them, because separation means death. With this, the squad continues moving, and in no time they realize that they are almost through the sandstorm. Even though it is hard and strenuous, they manage to push through. Moments later, they arrive at the trial core, which is a mana pillar, but has a guardian barrier for defense. Sitting in the middle of the core is the trial sun, which is considered indestructible as long as the defense holds up. The yellow sun notices their arrival, and with a wicked smile, it welcomes them as foolish challengers who have come to die. The scary aura from the yellow sun alone scares the life out of Vogel players. However, Marie tells them to calm down because the sun won't attack them as long as they don't enter the barrier, which is its domain. She adds that there are 3 pillars on the outskirts, and by attacking these pillars, they can weaken the sun to make it sweeter. They can attack the pillars while they are outside. But the pillars are extremely tough, so they are going to need numbers to weaken it. Ray tells the team that he is going to handle the core, while they hit the outer pillars with maximum firepower within budget. Since the pillars won't attack back, the team is more than happy to jump on the mission. Rai assures them the pillars are like punching bags. But they have to attack them until they turn red, and they must keep the pillars in the state. Just then, Marie walks up to Rai, asking him if she can join the fight against the core instead of punching the pillars. Marie tells Rai that she would like to try out her team's original plan against the core to see if it can work in a continental-level trial. Rai refuses the offer, saying calculations have already shown that even with all of Vogel's firepower, the damage to the pillars is barely sufficient. Because of this, Rai believes that if one A-class player leaves, the pillar's color might not be stable. Marie then smiles at Ray, telling him to take her place instead. This annoys Ray, and he points his dagger at Marie, demanding 10 billion yen because he is the one giving orders for the operation. He reminds Marie that if she doesn't obey his orders, there is a 10 billion penalty to pay. Rai assures Marie that as long as she is able to pay the 10 billion, she is free to join the fight, but he lets her know that he won't be the one to guarantee her life. Marie is surprised that Rai is willing to take such a huge amount of money out of her allowance, but Rai doesn't really care. Once the squads are all ready to attack the pillar, Rai gives them the go-ahead to do so. Shortly afterward, the pillars turn red one after the other, and Ray tells Gold Farm's core assault team to stop attacking the pillar because once it stabilizes, they are going to proceed with their strategy. Yuto and the others acknowledge the order, while Marie is trying to convince her brother about what she told him. Daniel tries arguing with Marie, but Marie straight up threatens him by surrounding him with vines, ready to choke him up. With this, Daniel can see that his sister is really serious. He then walks up to Ray, telling him that he has a favor to ask him. Ray asks him what it is, and Daniel tells Rai that he would like Vogel to handle the boss. Ray is surprised to hear this because the main reason Daniel employed Gold Farm was that they decided it wasn't possible. Daniel then says they called Ray and Gold Farm because failure isn't an option because if they fail, having backup ensures that they can fight with peace of mind. Ray sighs in disappointment, asking Daniel if he is trying to say that they are backups. Rai then reminds Daniel that what he is about to do is a breach of contract which attracts 10 billion. Rai asks him if he can pay the fee, and Daniel assures him that he is aware of the penalty fee. Rai then tells Daniel that he should have it at the back of his mind that no matter who defeats the boss, the reward split won't change. Ray lets Daniel know that he is just going to lose 10 billion while also taking unnecessary risks. Daniel looks really disappointed while telling Rai that he is aware of the fact that there is no financial benefit. Just as he is about to mention why he is taking the risk, Marie appears behind him and her voice sends chills down his spine. He quickly changes what he was going to say, claiming that Vogel is a globally renowned large-scale guild that needs to gain experience in conquering continental-level trials. Daniel tells Rai that the Vogel team is pretty experienced and that they are going to be of benefit to the organization in the future. Marie then cuts in, telling Daniel not to complicate things because it is their job as players to challenge high-difficulty trials. She claims that they are not going to back down just because the game has become reality. Marie asks Rai if she understands her analogy, but Rai says no. But he doesn't really care as long as they pay the penalty fee. Daniel then tells Rai that he has already transferred the funds to his account. And the moment Rai confirms the payment, Rai tells Marie to go ahead without interference. Daniel tells Rai that he will have to handle the pillars since Marie is not available. And Rai assures him that he is up for it. While they are busy discussing, Rai uses the soul eyes on Daniel, and he realizes that he possesses a Type C Night Soul fragment that can be extracted if he pays an unexpected amount of 10 billion yen or more. Since there is no reaction from the system, Ray realizes the penalty fee doesn't count for the condition. Even though low-grade souls are easy to gather, he knows that Type C souls are quite valuable. Because of this, Rai vows that he is going to get his hands on Daniel's soul fragment no matter what. Rai then asks Daniel if he would like to take some insurance. He tells Daniel that if he pays an additional 10 billion, he will save Marie if things get dangerous. When Daniel hears this, he considers it a good offer. And just as he is about to consider it, Marie cuts in saying there is no need for this. Marie tells Rai that they are all choosing to fight of their own free will. In addition, she believes that as long as they cross the barrier, the enemy's attacks won't reach them. Because of the small distance to the safe zone, Marie doesn't think paying 10 billion is worth it. Rai is not entirely pleased that Marie just ruined things for him, and he tells her to do whatever she wants while they handle the pillars. Marie then tells the team to get ready as they prepare to engage the boss. Daniel lets them know that the enemy's core isn't the sun, but the Mona pillar sitting below it. Daniel explains that while the main unit led by Marie will attack the Guardian Barrier pillar, once it is destroyed, they will strike the monopillar with the special cannon that they have prepared just for the mission. Daniel tells the team that they must remain vigilant the moment they cross the line. Once Daniel is done dishing out instructions, he tells the team to dive into the battle area. Daniel then activates his skill, Knight's Intimidation, which provokes enemies, drawing their attention for a set duration. Daniel's skill works pretty well, and it catches the sun's attention, forcing it to unleash a powerful ray at him. Daniel is able to block the beam, and his squad members break the beam with a water attack. Daniel is glad that the water attribute worked out pretty well against the yellow sun's attack. Marie smiles when she realizes that everything is going pretty well, giving her the confidence that they might actually be able to defeat the trial. Marie gets excited and dashes toward the core while the rest of the team follows her. They all throw powerful attacks at the Guardian Pillar. And after a confident attack, they step back to see how much damage they did. Instead of the yellow sun getting weak, it actually becomes angrier as it tells the team to get ready for their deaths. The yellow sun unleashes an overwhelming beam that forces everyone to try to evade. However, most get hit, and even Marie can feel the intensity of the attacks. Realizing that human ability alone is not enough to handle it, she tells the team members to fall back. Marie then pulls out a knife and she cuts her neck, unleashing a pool of blood from her neck. With the blood sacrifice, Marie is able to activate a strange skill blood rose. Giant spider-like legs emerge from her back with a blood crown on her head, and she looks really scary. The yellow sun intensifies its attack against Marie when it senses the change in form. However, Marie easily dodges all of the attacks, shocking even. He talks about how rare the skill is, and Ray agrees with him, saying the real value of the skill lies in its offensive power. He explains that each of the thorns surrounding Marie has an attack power, which is equivalent to a normal player skill. At this point, all of Marie's attacks have only been able to cut down the Guardian Barrier's HP to 62%. Yudo then asks Ray if Marie's skill consumes HP for other buffs, but he mentions that the skill is optimized with HP boosting, skills and status configurations so that it can secure a realistic activation duration. Rai tells Yudo that it is a strategy that is unique to a large-scale guild that can rely on other members during cooldowns. When Daniel hears everything that Rai just said, he admits that Rai is well-informed because even among players, most don't have the knowledge that Rai just said. Rai casually replies to Daniel, telling him that information exists in certain places, since Marie is doing the major work. Cookie believes that they don't need the cannon's fire, but Rai tells him that he is wrong. He explains that the sun's attack actually increases as the barrier's HP decreases. To make it worse, the sun will reach maximum difficulty once the barrier is destroyed. Ray says focusing all firepower in that instant is the logical choice. As the battle continues, Maria is able to get the barrier's HP to 50%, but suddenly the ground in the domain rises up to form an altar. The sun then tells the challengers to offer a sacrifice if they want to proceed. The moment it displays this information, its attacks become more ferocious. And Marie figures out that the trial will kick into difficult mode once the Guardian falls to 50% HP. Even with the intensified attacks, Marie still believes that her mobility will save her. However, this delusion soon wears off when the attacks get more serious, leaving her to wonder what is happening. She turns around to check the pillars, and she's surprised that the pillars are still red. Realizing that things are getting worse, she decides that a retreat might be the right choice. But just as she is about to make her move, another barrier appears in the domain. The system then tells them that one player needs to be on the altar if they want to attack the Guardian barrier. They are informed that the Guardian barrier's HP will go back to 50% if there is no player on the altar. This is when it dawns on Marie that they are not allowed to retreat, but she still believes that she can take on the core. She dashes toward the barrier with the intention of attacking it. But she is met with a series of attacks, and one of her spider legs even gets burned. Even though this came as a surprise, Marie manages to recover, and she goes after the barrier again. Even Rai is impressed when he sees this because getting hit often leads to panic and getting overwhelmed. But Marie overcame this. Daniel then asks Rai if the difficulty has stabilized. And Rai replies that it will remain that way until the Guardian barrier is broken. But even with this, it is still risky. Rai then tells Daniel that he is ready to help Marie for $5 billion. And this shocks Daniel, who thought the insurance fee was $1 billion. Rai then mentions that he just raised the price, and the price will go up even higher later. Daniel takes a moment to think about it, and he tells Rai that he's going to pass on the offer because he trusts Marie. Moments later, the barrier HP remains at 49%, which is just 1% difference from everything Marie has thrown at it so far. Marie then tells the team to push harder. But suddenly, the sun unleashes a scary attack on her. She manages to dodge the first wave, but before she knows it, a series of attacks converges on her position. When she sees this, she realizes that she is screwed. Without being able to dodge, she gets hit pretty badly, and her right arm gets torn off alongside her left leg. Daniel screams out in horror when he sees this, and even the Vogel forces realize that things have gotten really bad. The squad leader screams at the team to help Marie. But they tell the dude that they have no chance if Marie can't handle the attacks the sun is dishing out. Before they know it, the attacks get even worse with Marie getting hit really badly, causing her so much pain that she screams out. This is when Daniel finally falls to his knees, begging Ray to save Marie. Ray smiles at Daniel and names his price. And Daniel assures him that he is going to pay whatever it takes. Rai considers the deal done and breaks through the barrier, while the sun awaits his arrival. Rai gets to Marie, and he manages to get her out of the danger zone back to the rest of the team. Daniel screams at the healers to come to Marie's aid, and they all engage their best spells to make sure they save Marie. Rai then tells Daniel that the injuries are not life-threatening, which is thanks to the fact that Marie had a durability-focused build. Daniel thanks Rai because if not for him, Marie would have definitely died. But Ray tells him that there is no need to thank him because he is getting $10 billion for his services. Surprisingly, Daniel uses the Japanese proverb that Rai told Marie the first time they met. Since Daniel has agreed to pay the fee, Rai is able to meet the condition to extract his soul fragment. Suddenly, Marie starts to laugh like a crazy woman, leaving Daniel to believe that his sister has mentally lost her mind. Marie then points to the sun, saying it would have been absurd if it were heard that they lost one or two transcendents while fighting it. Before they know it, tears start dripping down her face while saying everything has been meaningless. However, Daniel tries to console her, telling her that she fought well, so her struggles were not meaningless. Daniel lets her know that they were able to come this far because of her sacrifice. Marie tells her brother that after fighting the sun with everything she has and wasn't able to scratch, she doesn't think it is something humans should try to handle. However, Rai disagrees with her, saying trials are meant to be cleared. Maria is surprised that Rai thinks they still have a chance, and Ray lets her know that this is why they came. Rai confidently tells Marie that fighting the core is the gold farm's job. As Rai and his team prepare to take on the core, Marie tells her brother to carry her to one of the pillars. Daniel asks her what she is planning to do, and she assures her brother that she is not going to do anything dangerous because she just wants to attack the pillar. She lets Daniel know that the pillar will maintain its weakened state if she is able to contribute. Daniel is worried about her condition, but she assures her brother that she can still use her skills as long as she is alive. She mentions that her lost arm and leg can be regenerated later, and Daniel finally agrees to take her to the pillar. Meanwhile, Ray has started his plan, and he tells the team that as long as there is a sacrifice on the altar, the attacks from the outside can get through. However, it is left for the sacrifice to keep dodging, which in this case is him. Room tells the team to focus their attacks on the guardian barrier, while Rai is acting as a decoy. However, she tells them to save skills with cooldowns till after the barrier is destroyed. The team then starts their assault on the barrier, and in no time, they get the HP down to 45%. Seeing how Rai and his squad are handling the core, Marie asks Daniel if he thinks they would have been able to clear it if they had the same method as Ray's team. Daniel tells her that they still won't be able to because it might look simple, but it isn't. Daniel tells Marie that whoever is inside the altar would have to be dodging the attacks in real time. Marie admits that she would have run out of stamina if she tried to do the same with Blood Rose. Daniel then asks her if she thinks the difference in level is the key. But Marie says no. She says her mobility is actually higher than Race. However, the ability to see and dodge countless attacks consecutively requires a top-notch level of focus and anticipation, which is something only the player can develop for themselves. When Daniel realizes that Rai is basically relying on technique alone, instead of skills, to actually do what he is doing, he starts wondering if he is the last one of the 10 Transcendents. Marie says she doesn't know, but she is pretty sure that Rai is on par with whoever is number 1 on the list. Moments later, they are able to get the barrier down to 0 HP, which leaves them with just the main pillar, which is the trial core itself. Since the barrier is destroyed, Rumi tells the team to concentrate all of their power on the main mana pillar. They do as told, and the moment their attacks land on the pillar, it lets off a loud explosion that leaves the team questioning if they have taken down the trial. Suddenly, the yellow sun turns red, and instead of the clown appearance, it looks more horrific. To show how dangerous the core has become, the system tells them that all attacks have become instant kill. The team cannot believe their eyes when they see this. But Rai also prepares himself for the deadliest showdown. The core then unleashes a series of attacks at Rai. And surprisingly, he doesn't dodge. It turns out that Rai has activated a skill that delays death for 10 seconds. In addition, the attacks are only going to aim to kill him without wounding his body, the moment the sun's beams hit him. The countdown begins, and Rai knows that he has to take down the trial within that time frame. Ray goes after the sun, and he activates Clear's throat. Another skill, Soul Disaster. This gives him a dangerous level of cutting power that he unleashes against the sun. With 3 seconds left on the clock, Ray shatters everything holding the core together, thus destroying the sun in the altar. The system then displays the notification that the trial has been defeated. The team erupts in celebration because they finally cleared the trial after so much effort. Rai also descends to join them, admitting that it was a close call. He is surprised that the pillar was considered the boss and just. Then he gets a notification from the system congratulating him as the first player in the world to have successfully conquered a continental-level trial. The system then grants him the title of the first conqueror. But the moment the system detects that he already possesses this title, the system automatically merges the titles. This then evolves into a new title, which is the Ancestral Conqueror, which increases damage by 100% against bosses and large-scale trials. When Ray sees this, he almost loses his mind because 100% damage is too broken. He knows that things would have been only him if he had such a title during the game era. Since the destruction of the trial area has been averted, the system requires that they enter the name of the party that defeated the trial. Rai and Daniel both input their respective guild names as a joint effort in defeating the boss. Later on, Ray visits the Vogel branch in Sydney, and after all the calculations, he is told that he will be getting 62 billion yen. However, adding the 10 billion for saving Marie pushes it to 72 billion yen. Daniel then tells him to sign the contract if he has no objections. Ray smiles, saying he has no objections. But he is curious to know if Daniel and his guild can pay out 70 billion with immediate effect. Daniel admits that they lost 20 billion, and even though it hurts, he is confident that this is not enough to sink them. In addition, he believes that his sister's life is worth more than the money. Marie reveals that it will take a week for the reattached limbs to stabilize. But she urges her brother that they should work hard once she is back into shape. Marie then tells Ray that she has something to ask him, and Ray reluctantly tells her to go ahead. Marie mentions that the skill Rai used was reliant on individual skills and qualities, which leaves her to wonder if there is another method. Rai replies that there is definitely another method, and the trial itself even told them this. Marie is confused when she hears this, and Rai reminds them that the trial told them to offer a sacrifice if they wish to proceed. Basically, they were supposed to have a player who is willing to die. This player will run into the barrier while the high-damage players attack it. Rai lets them know that the altar was basically a sacrificial altar. When Daniel hears this, he screams out saying it is too great a cost. Rai then points out the risk, saying it is the whole continent against one life. In fact, Rai believes that they could have tied up death row prisoners and thrown them onto the altar. Basically, as long as there is a sacrifice. Player skills don't matter, which shows that the trial was indeed a simple one. Marie then tells Rai that executing such a plan in modern society would be challenging. She believes that the trial is not only testing the player's strength, but the society itself. Daniel agrees with this. But to Rai, he maintains the fact that it was a simple trial. However, he doesn't really care as long as it is profitable to him. Later on, Ray finds himself in the first-class section of a plane. He is blown away by the food and luxurious things because it is his first time. However, Yudo wonders why the plane is not fully booked when Gold Farm is not the only one that could have paid for it. Rumi believes that the plane is not fully booked because it is a flight heading to China which might be destroyed by the trial. So naturally, people won't want to go. On the other hand, with what she heard, flights to Australia are fully booked. Ray is not surprised, since Australia is the only place with no risk of being destroyed by a trial. Yudo then says they might be the only ones leaving the country. A flight attendant shows up asking Rai what drink he would like to have, and Rai tells him to provide the most expensive drink that they have. Suddenly, the plane gets rocked aggressively, shocking everyone on board. The alarm goes off, and the seatbelt sign shines bright in the plane. Rai asks the attendant if they got hit with turbulence, but the attendant says it feels different from normal turbulence. He decides to go check with the pilots to know what is happening, and he urges them to fasten their seatbelts in the meantime. But Rai couldn't care less. Things get even worse when the plane starts tilting upwards, causing the passengers to panic. And the attendant says the plane might stall if this continues. Rai asks if she has a skill to help stabilize the plane, and she says no. To Yudo, who also says no since all he can do is just run quickly. Yudo returns the question to Rai, who reveals that his powers can levitate things. But the plane's mass is way above what he can do. Rai then dashes toward the cockpit, since none of his guild members can help with the problem. He asks the pilot what the issue is, and he reveals that the elevator is stuck in the up position. No matter how much they push the control stick, it just won't reset. Rai then figures out that they are talking about the plate at the back of the plane. Ray leaves the cockpit, asking the pilots if all he needs to do is push down the elevator. The pilot realizes that Ray is trying to go outside, and he tells him that he must have gone crazy. He mentions that it is usus 30 degrees outside, and even the air pressure will most likely crush you. Even if he survives this, the airspeed is currently over 1,000 km/h. Rai ignores them and makes his way to the door. He knows that the Heil players might survive if the plane crashes. But the rookie cash cows are definitely not going to make it, and he is not about to lose any of his money-making humans. He grabs the lever and tries pulling it with all of his strength. The attendant sees this, and he tells Rai that at the current altitude, coupled with the pressure difference, the door won't open. He adds that even if it opens, Rai will just be blown away. Ray ignores the dude and tells Yudo that the moment he steps outside, he should close the door to avoid decompression. Rai then steps out of the plane, but he uses the soul thread to keep himself attached to the plane. The attendant is left in awe because Ray just opened a door under tens of tons of pressure with his bare hands. Once Rai has gotten to the affected area, he realizes that it is truly cold outside, just as the pilot said. Since the oxygen level is low, he figures out that he has to finish quickly. Rai is able to get it done, and the plane starts to stabilize, while those inside are celebrating. Rai contacts Misaki via telepathy to tell her about the plane's situation. Misaki starts to panic, but he tells her to calm down while revealing that the plane is stabilized, but he is currently holding the tail fin in place. Ray then asks Misaki what he is supposed to do after this, and this is when it dawns on Misaki that Ray went outside without confirming with the captain. Nonetheless, she tells him to hold on while she confirms with the captain. The captain is shocked when he hears Misaki's voice in his head asking him what to do. After getting the information, she relays it back to Ray. Apparently, he has to destroy the elevator since it is not responding to commands, which means it's better not to have it at all. Rai is skeptical about this, but Misaki tells him that the captain already gave the go-ahead, so it should be fine. Rai then whips out his dagger and he cuts off the plane's tail. This causes the plane to rock really hard. And when Ray returns to the plane, he tells the pilots that he has taken care of the elevator, just as they asked. The pilots are impressed by Ray's bravery, and they start asking if he is even human. Since Rai has done his part, the captain tells his co-pilot that it is up to them to land the plane. The captain makes his announcement, telling the passengers that the plane will make an emergency landing. He urges them to fasten their seatbelts and also put on their oxygen masks while they prepare for a water landing. The captain manages to gently land the plane on the water, and fortunately they all make it. While they are stuck in the lifeboat, Rai is already thinking of catching the most expensive fish in the water. Rai that Misei has contacted her to let her know that the rescue will arrive in about 2 hours. The captain is thankful that there are no casualties in the accident. But Ray doesn't believe that it is an accident. Rai contacts Misei, asking her if there's been any update on the cause, and she lets him know that the whole situation is still under investigation. However, it appears that planes traveling between Australia and China had devices installed on them to trip off the elevators. Misei tells Rai that if the plane was really targeted, this means that the attack was aimed at Gold Farm. Ray is curious to know how the perpetrators bypassed the airport security, and Misei says it shouldn't be hard for a player. Thankfully, the plane wasn't blown out of the air. Yu then mentions that doing something of this magnitude can only mean a big organization is behind it. Room mentions her worry, saying the Dark Guild might be trying to sabotage the Asian trial. Rai says this is the most obvious assumption, but he believes that short-selling profits from trial failures should already be addressed by national countermeasures. This leaves Rai wondering if another method of profiting has been devised. But Misei says no, according to the last report she had. Misei says that for the attack to be on this level, it shows that whoever is behind it means business, leaving her to wonder if it is revenge from the Japanese Dark Guild that they destroyed. Rai replies that even if it is a grudge targeting, the plane is going overboard, because even if the plane exploded midair, Kyle, players would still be alive, and he is sure that the Dark Guild also knows this. This leaves them asking who it might be and to what purpose is it that they tried to crash the plane. Deep down, Ray believes that it was done to delay the team from getting to China on time. Rai then asks Saki if they will be able to make it to the Cascade trial on time. And Saki assures him that she is going to get the team there, no matter what. Meanwhile, in China, reporters are seen reporting live from the trial camp. Apparently, the Black Dragon Guild has assured everyone that the trial can be cleared. With 3 days remaining, the people are already panicking. Even flights and ships departing Asia are fully booked. And there have been situations where a single seat was sold for 20 million yen. At the same time, in some areas, citizen riots have broken out. At a certain airport in Vietnam, a large crowd is seen trying to board the last plane. When one of the stranded dudes realizes that they can't get on the plane, he opts to smash the plane because he is not about to let only the rich escape to America. It turns out that the situations have gone out of hand, and governments all over the world have been overwhelmed. At the same time, Ray and his team are still heading to China, and he is following up on everything that is happening. At the Cascade trial, there are a total of 11 waterfalls that need to be conquered before being able to clear the trial. The Black Dragon is finally starting to make their move, and they are even live broadcasting the whole thing. Before they begin the trial, the dragon takes his time to introduce himself to everyone, and he assures everyone that they are going to be able to clear the trial in 12 hours. He urges them to stay on the live stream while they try to clear the dungeon. Moments later, monsters start washing downstream. And with all the flex in the world, the Dragon King tells his warriors to take out the monsters. The warriors engage their aura blades and other fancy moves to easily take down the monsters, since it is the first level. With the Black Dragon wiping out the monsters, the regular players who came as a backup are all left in awe. The players are left wondering why they are there when it appears that the Black Dragon Guild can easily handle everything. One of them then mentions that he heard that there is a section where numbers are needed. Without wasting time, they move past the first waterfall, and the path to the next waterfall is opened for them. They are informed that the path will close in 10 minutes, and the next trial will begin simultaneously. Just then, chains appear for the players to use in getting to the next level. With the Dragon King leading the way, every other player follows his lead. They continue with this momentum until they get to Waterfall 9. The Dragon King addresses the viewers again, telling them that the trial's completion is within sight since they have already made it to the 9th waterfall. Suddenly, the live stream gets cut off, shocking the viewers. Rumi asks Rai if it is impossible to communicate in the Cascade trial, and Rai says signals can normally get through. He believes that what just happened is a signal interference because it was suddenly cut off. Yu gets curious when he hears this, as he demands to know who would do such a thing and the why behind it. Rai replies that he can only answer the why. He believes that the feed got cut off to prevent whatever is about to happen inside from getting exposed. Back in the trial space, it turns out that it was the Dragon King who asked his men to disconnect the broadcast. And since phones are out of range, they are in the clear. The normal players are confused when they hear this, and they start getting worried that something is awfully wrong. The Dragon King then turns to them to tell them that they are going to need their help to weaken the trial system. Eager to help, the players ask the Dragon King what they are supposed to do. An ominous aura immediately emanates from the dude's body as he tells the players that it is their job to die at the current junction. Suddenly, monsters appear above them to attack them. The Dragon King explains that the Cascade trial difficulty reduces with the more deaths it records. This is why he brought them, so he can sacrifice them and get the difficulty to come down. The Dragon King watches as the helpless players are torn apart by monsters, while telling them that their worthless lives now have a meaning. Some of the players turn around and start running for it. But the Dragon King is not worried, because he believes that they don't have what it takes to survive and return to the surface. By sacrificing a bunch of people, the challenge truly got easier, and the Black Dragon continued moving forward. However, the Dragon King tells his people to be careful, because the difficulty will rise exponentially by the time they get to Waterfall 11. In no time, they clear out Waterfall 10, and they head to the dreaded Waterfall 11. As usual, the team begins strongly as they cut down monsters like they are tissue. One of them mentions that they might actually be able to save their cooldown skills for the final stage. Suddenly, a large fish monster appears behind one of the team members. Just as he is about to get eaten, another team member saves him, hitting the fish monster with his nunchucks. However, he is surprised that even though he used a powerful skill, the fish monster is still moving. Suddenly, the fish monster multiplied into tiny other fish. Panic erupts when the team sees this. But the Dragon King urges them to calm down, telling them that they have nothing to fear as long as the aura protecting them stays intact. He suggests that they focus on the enemies. But his colleagues let him know that they keep increasing no matter what it is that they do. Before they know it, their aura starts to fade and the monsters are able to get to them. The monsters bite into their skins, causing them pain as they tear them apart. The Dragon King finally starts to worry, and he wonders why the monsters are multiplying even though they made sacrifices. He wonders if some of the sacrifices actually survived the onslaught. Realizing that things have gotten tougher, the Dragon King lifts into the air and cooks up a powerful aura spell. He tells his colleagues to abandon single attacks and focus on area attacks instead. The Dragon King unleashes his attack spell, taking out a bunch of monsters as the wave passes through the cave. The others also follow his lead. But the more they take out monsters, the more the monsters increase in number. The dragon panics and tells his team to increase the intensity of the area attacks, but they let him know that the skills are on cooldown. It turns out that they have exhausted all of their area attacks, which makes things really bad. Just then, a notification comes in telling them at Waterfall 11, monsters continue to spawn until the target number is reached. The team realizes that they are done for when the system tells them that the number of enemies that they have to defeat is 300,000. To put it into perspective, they have only been able to take down 2% of that, which is 6,000 plus monsters. The Dragon King freaks out when he sees this, and he tells his team to retreat because there is no way in hell that they are taking out the number of monsters the system is demanding. However, the monsters are not about to let them go scot-free as they chase the team down, taking down a few of them. Not long after this, the news broke everywhere that the Black Dragon had failed to clear the trial, and the leader of the Black Dragon team had disappeared. It turns out that the International Players Federation is taking the incident seriously because they are highly pissed. When Rumi hears this, she isn't surprised because she already knew that the Black Dragon doesn't have what it takes to clear the trial. Meanwhile, the Dragon King is seen running through alleys in Vietnam trying to escape because he believes that the continent is doomed already. Out of nowhere, an attack accompanied by a golden light hits the Dragon King in the head, immediately sending him to the afterlife. The attacker turns out to be a dude clad in gold armor who looks really dangerous and cool at the same time. The aura farming dude then contacts a higher authority to tell them that he has taken care of the Dragon King who is trying to escape. The higher authority, who is a white-haired dude, is surprised that the Dragon King thought he could actually escape after putting billions of lives in danger. The man then turns to his assistant, asking him about the Japanese guild. The attendant tells him that they should get to the trial site in a day. However, it is reported that some members of Genesis Wings are missing, but their core members are still available. Just then, the assistant lets him know that Gold Farm is demanding additional compensation. And the dude is surprised that Ray is talking about money at such a critical moment. It turns out that the UN is offering to give Gold Farm 300 million in compensation. But Rai says it is not enough. Even though the dude is stubborn and doesn't want to give in to demands. He knows that there are just 3 days left, and he doesn't want to take the chances. The dude then tells his assistant to tell the Gold Farm that they are going to add the $200 million seized from Black Dragon, which means Gold Farm will be getting $500 million in compensation. Shortly afterward, Rai and the Gold Farm members arrive at the trial site. Tsukino welcomes Rai, telling him how surprised she was when she heard that his plane went down. However, she wasn't worried because she knew that there was no way an elite squad like the Gold Farm would die from something like this. Rai tells Tsukino that it was even a blessing because this got him an additional $200 million in compensation. So, he doesn't even mind thanking whoever tampered with the plane. Rai then asks Tsukino about the trial, which is scheduled for the next day. But surprisingly, Tsukino wants them to move the trial up. Apparently, there are survivors abandoned by the Black Dragon, and she wants them to rescue these people. Rai agrees to this, but tells Tsukino that he has just one condition, and this is leaving those they are about to rescue to work for Gold Farm. Moments later, they begin the trial subjugation. As they cut through the first waterfall, Rai asks Tsukino if she is sure about subjugating the trial with their current number, because doing this will be extremely tight. He adds that whatever happens is on Tsukino, and she agrees to this. Tsukino then asks Rai about the missing members of the Genesis Wings. And Rai reveals that according to Masae's report, they were afraid for their lives, which is why they ran to America. Rai is disappointed that a healer is one of those who ran. And to make it worse, the blood sorcerer that they need in order to beat the 11th waterfall has also run away. Rai managed to bring a blood sorcerer, Ag, but he mentions that at least 2 are required for the trial. Since they are running short on personnel, he tells Tsukino that clearing the trial will be difficult. Tsukino then reveals that she was able to secure a blood sorcerer. Just then, a young girl, Fumika, shows up, introducing herself to Rai. Fumika confesses that her mother was against coming, but she snuck out to help. She mentions that Tsukino actually insisted, so she didn't have a choice. Tsukino apologizes for forcing her into such dangerous mission because she believes that it was her lack of leadership that made some of the members run away. However, Rai urges her not to blame herself because those who run away are the ones at fault. Fumika agrees with Rai, suggesting that they do their best with the remaining members. Rai then asks Tsukino again if they should wait for a day because according to calculations, if half of the current survivors die, the trial will weaken significantly. Rai believes that this will make things a bit better. Tsukino admits that she has thought about this, but she believes if they do this, the guild will no longer maintain its status. Tsukino tells Rai that she doesn't mind if there are risks involved as long as she gets to save the survivors. Tsukino apologizes to Rai for dragging him into such a dangerous situation because of her selfishness, but Rai lets her know that he doesn't mind. He says helping players is pretty profitable, and if done well, he might even get a new set of cash cows. While they are busy talking, the rest of the team is able to clear out the monsters, thus opening the path to the next waterfall. Soon afterward, they arrive at the 10th waterfall, and Rai says this is where the communication should start. However, it is surprising that there are no survivors in sight. Rai is the first to figure out where the survivors might be. Rai spots a cave entrance, and he leads the team into the cave, which turns out to be a safe zone. Apparently, when staying there, a player will sacrifice 5% of their HP every hour. And recovery skills cannot be used inside the refuge area. Tsukino is shocked when she hears this, because this means that they can only stay in the area for 20 hours. Suddenly, the survivors appear above them, demanding to know who Rai and the others are. The survivors leap down with the intention of fighting, because they believe that Rai and his squad are part of the Black Dragon Guild that betrayed them. However, one of the survivors is able to stop his enraged red-haired friend before he attacks Rai. He tells his friend to look at the clothes Rai and his friends are wearing, which means that they are not from the Black Dragon Guild. The dude finally calms down when he realizes that his friend is telling the truth, ultimately diffusing the situation. The dude asks Rai if they are the rescue team, and Rai replies with a smile on his face, assuring the dude that they are going to help them. However, this will only happen if they sign the contract to join his cash cow squad. The redhead and the yellowhead are shocked when they hear this, because they don't want to believe that they are hearing right. Rai tells them that he is going to teach them how to make money. But in return, they are going to give him half of their earnings as players. Rai points to his guild members, saying they are a part of his cash cow squad. He tells the survivors that Cookie and the rest will be their seniors. Cookie cannot believe that Rai is still calling them cash cows, even though they now have a registered guild name. Just as expected, the survivors do not take this lightly, as they talk about how strong players exploit low-level players like them. Suddenly, the redhead notices something strange about Cookie, and he asks Rai if he is truly part of the cash cow squad. Rai confirms this, saying Cookie is different from the others because he gives him 90% of his earnings instead of the regular 50%. Rai then asks the redhead why he is asking about Cookie. The dude then mentions that the watch Cookie is wearing is insanely expensive, which leads him to ask if the cash cow squad makes so much money. Rai then turns to Cookie asking him if the watch is truly expensive. But Cookie says no. He mentions that he bought the watch for about 2 million yen, which is not a big deal. The redhead and the yellowhead almost suffer a brain freeze when they hear this. They can't believe that Cookie is still able to afford something like this, even though he is giving 90% of his earnings to Rai. Rai then reveals that Cookie was able to earn over 20 million yen just in the past month, and after he gave his 90%, he was left with over 2 million. Tsukino is surprised that Rai remembers even the smallest details, and Rumi says Rai has a sharp memory only when it's about money. The colored head dudes then ask Cookie how much he was earning before he joined the cash cow squad. Cookie mentions that he was earning about 130,000 yen a month. But thanks to Rai's information, he has started earning a lot. He even shows the proof of this by showing off the multiple pieces of jewelry he is wearing on his body. The moment the survivors see this, they all go crazy, demanding to join the cash cows because they are finally ready to sign. When Tsukino sees just how ecstatic the players are, she concludes that Rai is running a pyramid scheme, and Rumi affirms this. After they are done signing the contract, Rai asks the survivors how much HP they have left, and they reveal that they have less than 20%. When Rai hears this, he realizes that they have 4 hours until they die. However, he is not about to allow this to happen because he plans to clear the dungeon before then. Upon arriving at the 11th floor, Rai asks the players if they are all ready for the battle to come. With a thunderous voice, they all reply that they are ready. As the trial begins, monsters troop in from all directions, charging into the squad. They initially opt to fight the enemies one by one, but Rai soon figures out that this is not going to work out. Rai calls on Ag, telling him that it is his time to shine. Ag then runs to the main stage, telling Rai to leave the buying of time to him. Ag leaps into the air and constructs a big magic circle, which he uses to unleash a powerful inferno. The fire is so much that even Tsukino is impressed. She admits that maintaining such a wide range of firepower is even beyond her, and this is where the blood sorcerers shine. Rai then mentions that Ag is fueling the flames at the cost of his own life force, which is why it is a profession where one stakes their lives. Room then tells the players to save skills that require cooldowns for the final waterfall trial. They all acknowledge this, and Rai also activates a special skill so he can finally join the fight. Moments later, AG has been able to take down over 20,000 monsters, which is 6% of the required number. However, the monsters keep increasing rapidly, and even the divided sharks are burned as soon as they multiply. However, they believe that if they maintain the attack formation, they are going to get it done. The problem now lies with the fact that AG's HP is below 30% already. Ray is surprised, asking if the recovery skills are not working. AG assures him that the recovery is working, but his skill is insanely burning through whatever the healers are doing to help him. Before they know it, AG's HP has fallen to 10%, which is the danger zone. Just then, Fumika comes forward, telling AG that she is going to take over from him. Fumika raises her staff and unleashes the Blood Inferno skill, burning through the monsters while AG recovers. At this point, they have been able to hit 22% completion rate. Kyuki and the other cash cows are impressed because the monsters are basically turning into ash the moment they spawn. Moments later, Fumika's HP also falls below 30% and Room asks Rai if he is ready. Rai says yes, telling them that he just finished cooking up the spell he wanted. A giant blue furnace appears overhead, which is a result of the Soul Furnace skill. Rai then takes over from Fumika, releasing an overwhelming amount of blue flames to consume the monsters. The moment Rai takes over, they are able to hit 44% completion rate. Fumika and Agi are left stunned because Rai's skill is pretty scary. Rai then urges them to stop attacking the monsters so that they can conserve their skills and stamina. Tsukino is forced to ask him if he can maintain the skill for a long time, and he says yes. Rai explains that the skill itself doesn't have much power, but if he boosts it with his stats, it is enough to wipe out the small fries. However, the energy efficiency is terrible, and Rai has to be consuming soul fragments to keep it running. Whenever the skill is about to run out, Rai will tap into one of his soul reserves and burn through them to keep the skill up and running. After burning through a bunch of soul fragments, he realizes that he can only still maintain the skill for 4 minutes. This gets him worried because this won't be enough still, since he is not ready to consume high-ranked soul fragments. He asks about Ag and Fumika's condition. Rai is informed that AG's HP is back at 80%, and he is eager to use the Blood Inferno again. Even Fumika believes that she is ready to go. Rai then notices that the healers are getting drained already. And this is because they lost some members from Genesis Wings. Since Rai would like to preserve the healers for the final trial, he tells Ag and Fumika not to worry. Rai then decides to use the Type E soul fragments that he didn't want to use before. This automatically increases the intensity of the fire, shocking Ag and the entire squad. Tsukino cannot believe that even the bones are already floating, showcasing just how intense the flame is. Just as Rai burned through his last soul fragment, they reached the desired number of monsters that they were supposed to kill. Rai is informed that the soul flame furnace has burned and will be reusable in 48 hours. Rai is glad that they were able to conquer the 11th floor. The system notifies them that they now have the right to participate in the final waterfall trial. Upon arriving at the last section of the trial, they find a deep waterfall leading into the ground, which is the 12th waterfall. Before diving in, they make plans on how to engage in the last trial. Apparently, Gold Farm members and some selected members of Genesis Wings, plus healers, will be the ones to jump into the waterfall. Rai says the remaining members are the subunit, and they are going to stay on top of the cliff. Part of this subunit is Fumika and a dude named Hiroshi. Hiroshi explains to his team that the 2 waterfalls they are staring at will start releasing monsters the moment the trial begins. The job of the subunit is to defeat the monsters to prevent them from getting to the main unit. Tsukino then urges the subunit not to overexert themselves, because any monster that flows down will still be dealt with by the main unit. Once they are done making their plans, Yudo asks Rai if they are seriously going to jump into the waterfall, and Rai says yes. Yudo is still complaining about how he is not mentally prepared when Rai jumps into the waterfall. The rest of the main unit immediately follows through, and as they emerge from the water, they find themselves in a heavenly area. They all agree that the section is beautiful. But while they are busy admiring the glory of the cave, Rumi climbs a boulder to address the squad. Rumi reveals that she is taking charge, and Saki is shocked to hear this. She is forced to ask Rai if truly taking charge. Rai casually replies that is the master of the guild. In addition, Rai says managing group battles is best suited for a healer who continuously monitors the members' HP. Once Room is done arranging everyone into their different sections, she tells them to get the subjugation of the final trial underway. For the final trial, they are required to withstand the monster's attacks for 600 seconds, which is 10 minutes. The system tells them that once the time is up and there is at least one survivor, the trial will be considered complete. The team soon realizes why they are given just 10 minutes to survive. And this is because the number of monsters that they are going against is immeasurable. Room calls out instructions for Rai, telling him to use the soul threat and incineration formation in area F. Rai commends Rumi for the good command, and he swings into action. He goes after the monsters and does just as Rumi told him to. Room then tells Tsukino to support Area 8. The entire team swings into action, burning through the monsters while the timer goes down. Room tells the team to be careful because monsters that escape the subunit will fall on them. Yudo soon notices that they are not getting too much interference from above and unknown to them. The subunit is having it really tough up there. When Rai notices that Rumi is concerned about those above, he tells her not to worry about them and to concentrate on her position. Rumi follows Rai's instruction and she continues dishing out orders. She tells all the players to gather in areas B and C. They are going to reduce the hit area and suppress the impact of falling debris. Not long after this, one of the healers tells that she has run out of mana. Is not surprised by this because they have put everything into consideration, so she tells her to fall back. Ag continues dealing damage, and just when he is about to use the Blood Inferno, stops him, telling him that the healers won't be able to help him if he passes out. Acknowledges this and follows through with regular attacks. Before they know it, they have gone past the 9-minute mark and they only have 1 minute left. With 1 minute left, Room tells the combatants to get more proactive while the healers fall back. She tells them that she is going to take over the healing session with her continuous healing. Tsukino is surprised that Room is ordering the healers to stop and screams at Tsukino, reminding her that she is the one in charge. Then continues dishing out instructions for the last push. She tells those with higher HP to step forward so that they can become a wall. And they happily follow her orders. The last 5 seconds feel like hell for the squad. But in the end, they are able to push through with Rai landing the final blow. The system then notifies them that time is up. They are also able to fulfill the conditions of at least one survivor, since there are 57 survivors. The system then tells them that the waterfall trial is over, and Asia's destruction has been avoided. Yudo smiles when he sees this, because the continent will still remain in one piece. The system demands that they enter the number of the party that cleared the trial while also telling them that all the players within the trial will be teleported to the entry after 10 minutes. As expected, Tsukino and Rumi enter their respective guild names as the joint party that cleared the trial. Room smiles because no one died since the main team consists of 57 people. Tsukino then mentions that the clearance was close. Rai agrees with her, saying the number of monsters falling from above was fewer than what was expected. Rai believes that the subunit must have fought recklessly for them to have been able to reduce the number of monsters, leaving them to wonder if the ones above are okay. Tsukino immediately whips out her phone to contact them. And when Rai realizes that things might actually be dire, he tells them to jump into the waterfall. He adds that those who can't move on their own should have others throw them into the water. Tsukino is questioning Rai's judgment, and Rumi quickly cuts in, reminding her that there are no healers above. So the only place they can get treated is down there. Rumi adds that this is why they told the healers to save their magic power. Rai tells Tsukino to hurry because if she waits for automatic withdrawal, those who can be saved will be too late. Tsukino then does as told, telling the subunit to jump into the waterfall. The moment they arrive on the scene, the recovery team gets to work on them. The combatants help them settle in while the healers do their thing. Rumi tells the healers to limit the recovery skills to the minimum needed to keep them alive so as to save their magic power. Moments later, the healers send their report saying there is no one on the verge of death again. Tsukino is about to start celebrating that they managed to pull this off without recording any deaths. When Fumika is brought in, she's missing an arm and her left torso is shattered too. Tsukino freaks out, and Rum tells the healers to use everything they have on Fumika. As instructed, the healers come together to grant Fumika their best. Fumika starts coughing up blood at some point without any sign that she's going to pull through. The healers tells Tsukino that the injuries are too severe, which is why their high recovery skills are not working. He mentions that what they need is a skill at the level of limb regeneration. But this is a problem because this skill takes time to take effect, and there is no way she is lasting that long. The healers then decide to use their magic to restore Fumika's HP in the meantime. Fumika finally speaks up, thanking the team and telling them that everything feels easier. Tsukino berates Fumika, reminding her that she already warned her about overexerting herself. Fumika replies that this was her plan, but the monsters started heading toward the main unit and she couldn't overlook it. This is the last thing Fumika says as she gives up the ghost, leaving Tsukino totally stunned and dumbfounded. The dudes from Genesis start screaming at Rumi, asking her why she didn't say anything. She calmly replies that it wouldn't have changed anything because the ones above were the ones who decided to fight recklessly. Apparently, she knew the situation, but she figured out that focusing on the fight and saving as many recovery skills as possible would help the situation. Just when they are about to continue dragging her, Tsukino cuts in, telling them to stop. Tsukino mentions that she already knew from the start that it would be impossible to clear the trial without casualties. Rai also joins in saying Rumi's command was flawless, and the only reason they had casualties was due to a lack of combat power. It turns out that one person in the main unit died, while 3 in the subunit died. Rai says if they hadn't helped the survivors, they might have reduced the number by at least 1. He then asks Tsukino if she regrets her decision. But she says no. She mentions that they might have suffered 4 casualties, but they were able to save 36 people in return. Rai then cuts in, telling Tsukino that it's not just 36, because the ones they saved will go on to save many more people in the future as members of his money-making army. Tsukino is surprised to hear Rai say this, and she teases him, asking if he has awakened to helping others. Just as expected, Rai casually replies that he is happy to help because it is profitable. Soon afterward, the dead are placed in coffins, ready for burial. Hiroshi urges Tsukino not to blame herself too much, because trials in America and Europe reported casualties in the hundreds. Hiroshi believes that being able to clear the trial with just 4 casualties is something to be proud of. When Tsukino finally speaks up, she says they are able to reduce the number of casualties thanks to Gold Farm. Hiyori then jumps in saying Rumi's orders were amazing because she oversaw everything correctly. Tsukino believes that Rum is the best healer in the country. However, she is confident that Rei was the one who devised the strategy. She mentions that during the battle, Rumi seemed to issue commands even for areas she couldn't have possibly seen herself. Tsukino is pretty sure that Rei had predicted all the possible scenarios beforehand, organized them, and then communicated them to Rumi. This is basically why Rumi only needed to confirm parts of the battle situation to determine the necessary commands. However, Tsukino is surprised because Rum has a talent for memorizing many scenarios and then issuing commands. Hiyori tells Tsukino that predicting everything before the battle begins is practically impossible. Tsukino agrees with her but says with Rei, anything is possible. Later on, Rai steps out of the shower and he asks Misei about the African trial. Misei mentions that around 300 people, including top players, stayed behind to attempt it. But they were all wiped out. Basically, there's no force on the African continent that is capable of challenging the continent class trial. In addition, The reinforcement sent by various countries faced plane crashes, shipwrecks, and other issues too, which made it impossible for them to arrive in time. The mention of plane crashes catches Ray's attention again, but he refuses to say anything just yet. Misei lets Rai know that it has been concluded that the African continent is going to fall. This leaves Misei asking if this is another sabotage by the Dark Guild. Ray replies that it is hard to say. But he knows that the Dark Guild shouldn't have the power to simultaneously crash planes globally, which means that an organization even larger than the Dark Guild is involved in everything. However, Ray is not in a hurry because he knows that they are going to find out soon enough. Soon afterward, Tsukino and her squad returned to Japan, and they received a warm welcome from the people. People scream out Tsukino's name, but Tsukino cannot even open her mouth to return the greeting. Ray, on the other hand, could see that Tsukino is becoming more popular. The more popular she is, the easier it is to increase the rewards from trials, which is helpful. However, Ray can see that Tsukino is not even happy with the whole thing. Yori angrily talks about how the people are celebrating, even though the team lost 4 members. Even Hiroshi agrees with her. But surprisingly, Tsukino cuts in telling them not to blame them because for the citizens, they are celebrating the team for saving Japan. They basically protected Japan at the cost of irreplaceable sacrifices. Later on at the Gold Farm office, Ray and his squad watch a live broadcast of a dude on the African continent who has built an underground shelter 40 m deep at a cost of 1 billion yen. With just 1 minute left, the dude is confident that he is safe underground. Lots of people drop messages on the stream asking him if he thinks it is safe and how he plans to collect resources alone. He then reveals that everything he needs is inside the bunker. Starting from water, food, satellite communication, emergency power supply, and all the basic needs to stay alive. The dude boasts about how safe the bunker is, which is why he has nothing to fear. Just then, the countdown hits 0. And a massive wave of energy hits the continent, shredding everything apart. Root-like monsters run rampant, tearing poor citizens apart while the dude sips a glass of wine for them. The whole continent is plunged into darkness, and suddenly the roots start making their way down into the ground. Suddenly, the dude feels a crack in the wall, and before he knows it, everything completely falls apart. The dude screams in shock, wondering how the roots got to him. But it was already too late, as everybody on the stream watches him get decimated. He screams for help, but there is no Superman or Plantman to get him out of there. And in the end, his camera outlasted him. Back in the Gold Farm building, Rumi expresses her shock that a nuclear shelter couldn't save the dude. Rai tells the lady that this was expected because a continent-class trial is not something to be joked with. In addition, he tells them that something huge is coming very soon. Just then, everyone gets the notification that all continent-class trials have been completed. The continents that survived are congratulated, and they are informed that the tutorial has ended. Since the tutorial is done, the first update is automatically implemented, and this puts fear on the faces of everyone watching this. They start asking Rai several questions because they are now confused, and Rai lets them know that he can predict what is about to happen. Rai mentions that new rare rewards will be added to the trials, but the difficulty of the trials will increase. In addition, the number of trials occurring will skyrocket. Just then, trials started popping up everywhere, and the time limit for them is 10 days. Room and the team are shocked when they see 2 trials appear in the same location. But before they know it, they realize that larger trials have appeared too. These are trials targeting the cities themselves, and they have 15 days on their timer. Tokyo's 20 wards, which are the trial of the harbor, has a 15-day deadline to be cleared, while Kyoto Ward, Minata Ward, Shinjuku Ward, and Shibuya Ward, which is the trial of the glass, have 16 days as a deadline. This soon morphs into an even larger trial as it encompasses all of the wards in the country, thus transforming into one big nationwide trial. In the end, the target area for this is the entirety of Japan, and the deadline for this is just 60 days. with the name called Trial of the Tsunami. Yu screams in fear when he realizes that everything that has been happening to them so far was truly a tutorial. And they are just about to enter the main screw-up. While the Gold Farm members are crashing out in the office, the members of the public are also losing their minds. Yudo is forced to ask if Japan is the only place for trials. Misei then reveals that the nationwide trial database in Japan has already reported over 10,000 trial occurrences. The team panics when they hear this because they don't believe that the country can accommodate such a large number of trials. Misei then says, the current capacity to clear regional trials in Japan is said to be roughly 2 to 100 cases per day. Misei believes that they should be able to clear the trials in a week if no new ones show up. However, Rei lets her know that she is wrong because she is making her calculations based on the situation before the update. Rai reminds her that the system notified them that the difficulty of the trials would increase. Yudo expresses his concern over this, because they don't even know just how difficult it is going to be since they have no prior information. Rei then lets him know that this type of trial appeared in the game too. This is when it dawns on Yudo that they are about to enter the harder version that was played offline. Yu believes that if something like that appears 10,000 times, they definitely have no way to deal with it. Rai tells the team that clearing everything would be nearly impossible. But he asks Misei if the rewards for the trials have been decided. Misei says no, because even the government is currently overwhelmed, which means proper evaluation is going to take some time. Apparently, there is a request for Gold Farm to focus on clearing trials in major urban areas. And Rai tells Misei to give him an estimate of how much she thinks the rewards are going to be. Misei explains that the previous regional trial reward was around 300,000 to 1 million yen. And since the difficulty has increased this time around, she believes that it might be around 3 million yen. When Rei hears this, he concludes that 3 million is still manageable. Rai then tells Misei to negotiate with the government so that it doesn't drop past the 3 million mark, but as usual, an increase would be highly appreciated. Misei acknowledges, but demands to know why Rei is concerned about 3 million in this time of crisis. Rai simply replies that 3 million is a huge sum of money, which is why. Rei also tells the team that he and Yudo will clear the first trial together so that they can know the difficulty. Rei tells Rumi to gather the members and wait at the office so that they can start clearing out trials the moment he and UTO determine the difficulty. Moments later, Rei and Yudo arrive at one of the trial sites. It turns out that a local guild has already entered the trial site. And while the people are worried, one dude in glasses urges them not to worry because there is no way the government will watch Tokyo perish. He is confident that if the local guild fails, a larger guild will be called upon to clear it. Just then, those on site spot Rei and Yudo walking to the entrance of the trial. Thanks to the fact that the two were at the airport during the welcome ceremony, those on site recognize them. Since they are confident that Yudo and Rai are skilled players, the people are relieved that the trial will be handled pretty easily. Just as the two are about to go further in, they are stopped by a dude who tells them that the trial is currently being cleared by his guild, the Claws of Glory. The dude holds up a sword to them, telling them that the government has already announced that trial clearing is on a first-come, first-served basis. Rai contacts Masaki to confirm this, and she lets him know that the government is trying to test the waters with lower rewards first, since they have not come to an agreement on what the reward price should be. Rei then asks Misei if she knows about the Claws of Glory Guild because he has never heard of them before. Misei reveals that they are a mid-sized guild based in Narama Ward. Apparently, their main players include 2 B-class players, and they also have about 40 other C to D-class members. The dude is surprised when he hears that Rai doesn't know his guild since they are supposedly popular in the area. He then demands to know who Rei and Yudo are, and Rei replies that they are from Gold Farm. The moment Rai says this, the dude actually recognizes them as the ones who cleared the continent-level trial. since he already knows who they are. Ray tells him to leave the trial to them instead, because his team doesn't have the strength to challenge such a trial. The dude gets mad about this, saying Ray is just trying to steal the rewards, which is why he is saying such BS. He adds that there is a rumor that Gold Farm is a bunch of money-hungry vultures, and Ray demands to know who is spreading such lies. Yudo, on the other hand, cannot even deny these allegations because they are basically true. Just then, the dude gets a call from his team leader. He excitedly picks up the call asking how the trial is going, but what he hears is his team leader getting shredded. The team leader screams out on the phone that the dude is forced to take the phone off his ear. When Yuto and Ray hear this, they immediately figure out what is happening. Ray says the trial's difficulty is now equivalent to pre-update national-level trials. The dude crashes to his knees in frustration, and Ray asks him how much time has passed since the trial started. He replies that it is about 30 minutes, and he starts begging Ray and Yudo to save his guild members. The dude offers to pay everything he has for this, but Rai rejects the money, telling him that there are no chances of survivors being there. However, Ray lets him know that he can guarantee his life for 3 million won. However, he can't guarantee that there are any survivors inside the dungeon, with a horrific expression on the dude's face. Rai and Yudo then begin their descent into the deeper section of the dungeon, cutting down monsters like tissue as they move further. Their new acquaintance is shocked when he sees the way the two are decimating monsters as if they were butter. Even trying to catch up to them as they move is a big problem, even though they are in combat. Moments later, they arrive at the boss's room, and Yudo confirms that it is a small-scale regional trial. Just then, the giant door opens, and the leader of the guild is seen stepping outside. Our new guy rushes over when he sees his guildmaster, but suddenly, the guild master raster crashes to the ground. The dude watches in horror as he realizes that his guildmaster is already dead with blood trails everywhere. The trio looks up to see an even more horrific view in the boss room. All members of the guild have been wiped out, and what remains in the boss room are their mutilated bodies. Ray assesses the situation and realizes that they had better equipment than before, but even with this, it was as if the mission was too much for a medium-sized guild to handle. Suddenly, they are attacked from above, and the trio moves in different directions to avoid death. The attacker finally reveals itself, and it is none other than the annoying vermilion spider. Yudo is shocked to see that a national-level trial monster appeared in what was considered to be a low-level dungeon. Yudo is still asking Rai what they are supposed to do when Rai makes his move. Rai dashes toward the spider with some crazy moves, and he remembers that the last time he fought the spider, he wasn't able to defeat it using regular skills. However, this time is different, and Ray awakens his dagger before activating the soul/skill. With this, Rai delivers a single and powerful strike that cuts the spider in half, ultimately defeating it. Thanks to his current stats, the spider is no longer a threat to Rai. The notification comes in congratulating them for completing the trial. They are informed that the destruction of the target area has also been avoided. When Rai sees this, he figures out that Gold Farm will be able to handle the trials, since the difficulty is still under the normal level. However, Yudo is worried that this means that the number of teams that can clear trials will be limited. Suddenly, Ray calls their attention to something strange, and this is the fact that the trial's disappearance hasn't been announced. Just then, the notification panel displays a hidden condition, telling them that the total annihilation of a party of 30 or more within 30 minutes after the trial begins has been met. Because of this, an extra trial has been triggered. Rai is shocked when he sees this, and he asks the new guy about how many of his guild members challenged the trial. He revealed that every member of the guild decided to take the trial, which means he was the only one left behind to keep watch. Ray then realizes that they exceed 30 people. The system lets them know that they must select challengers for the extra trial. Those who are not selected will be transferred outside the trial area. The system then gives them the option to choose, saying that at least one person must stay behind. Yudo then figures out that the extra trial is one that they can't survive with their current level. Rai admits that it is going to be tough in terms of combat power. He adds that at least one person needs to be picked for the extra trial. What is good about it is the fact that it doesn't have a downside. Suddenly, the new dude realizes that Yudo and Ray are staring at him. He starts screaming in fear, telling them not to use him as a sacrificial lamb. Rai ignores him and makes the selection. The dude holds his head in fear. But when he sees Ray's choice, he realizes that Rai picked only himself. Since Rai will be the only one staying, the new guy and Yudo will be transferred outside. The dude is shocked, and Rai reminds him that he already told him that he is going to guarantee his life for money. And since it is money, he never breaks his promises. As the system prepares to transfer Rai to the new trial area, Rai tells Yudo to inform the cash cows not to enter the dungeon no matter what. Yu freaks out when he hears this, and he tries to plead with Rai to let him join him. But he and the other dude are immediately transferred outside since they are non-challengers. Yudo then mentions the nostalgic feeling he is getting around everything which is. Like when Rai left him and Hashi behind in Pro Onto, lets off a cool smile. Because he thought Rai had sold his soul for money, but it appears that the old Ray he knows still hasn't changed. Moments later, Ray finds himself in the trial area, which is called Tribute to the Reckless. The recommended level for the extra trial is 90, and the time limit is 60 minutes, which means he has to defeat the boss Diamond Mantis in the given time. The system lets him know that he is going to die if he fails the trial, which is pretty obvious to say the least. With Ray's current level, which is 64, Ray realizes that the trial is at least 20 levels above him. Seeing this, he concludes that he is about to throw himself into a very dangerous mission. However, he is not worried because this is the only way one can obtain items that are not meant for their level. He then activates the Soul Eye so he can use it to analyze the extra trial. Ray is able to get important information that a complete soul can be extracted. Apparently, he has an option to obtain a rock soul, which is Type B. Ray is glad that the option to get this appeared at the right time. To obtain the soul, he has to meet certain conditions, which are to defeat a bunch of monsters. The list of monsters he is supposed to defeat is Ruby Centipede, Sapphire Longhorn Beetle, Emerald Dragonfly, Onyx Stag Beetle, Quartz Beetle, Opal Wasp, and Beryl Scorpion. He is required to kill all of these monsters to obtain the item. Without wasting time, Rai kicks into action and he decides to go all out from the start. He selects the Warrior's Soul Fragment as a power-up. Rai uses this to activate the Soul Flame Furnace, and he starts burning through the area with his blue flame. In no time, he has wiped out 4 of the species he is required to kill. By killing 4 in quick succession, the door to the deeper levels of the dungeon opens. While taking out the monsters, Ray knows that he has to be extremely careful because if the boss spots him with his current equipment, he is done for. All he can hope for is that the boss doesn't notice him while he achieves his side mission to obtain the soul fragment. To make sure that he is on the safe side, Rai delivers powerful strikes to the enemies. Shortly afterward, he realizes that there is only one monster left, and this is the Quartz Beetle. Just as he is about to go for the last monster on the list, a powerful attack comes flying in his direction. Rai manages to dodge the attack, but it destroys everything in its path, leaving a fiery after effect. With fear written all over his face, Rai looks up to see that the boss, Diamond Mantis, has noticed him already. Before he knows it, the mantis dashes toward him, but he manages to block the monster's attack. However, Ray finds it hard to hold on, and he finally lets go. He uses his speed to get out from under the overwhelming strength of the mantis. He activates the Soul Slash skill and leaps into the air to deliver a powerful blow to the mantis. However, this bounces off like it is nothing, and the mantis makes fun of him, telling him that he is weak. The mantis then launches a counterattack that sends Ray flying into the distance. He manages to land on his feet, but the damage to his body is evident. Ray teases the mantis, telling it that he wasn't expecting it to make an early appearance. The mantis then calls Rai a foolish human for coming to challenge it when he knows that he has no chance. The mantis asks Rai if he challenged him because he thought he could win, but Rai confesses that he already knew he had no chance. While discussing with the mantis, Rai is holding his dagger behind his back and he is attaching the soul thread to it. Even though Rai knows that he is completely dominated, he believes that there is a way out. The mantis then asks Rai if he is ready to sacrifice himself. The mantis prepares to deliver a crushing blow to kill Rai quickly, because he at least tried his best. The mantis leaps toward Rai, and at the same time, Ray throws his dagger. The mantis dodges this, mocking Ray for thinking it is dull to fall for such cheap tricks. The mantis tells Rai that it was aware that Rai was up to something. The mantis assures Rai that he is going to suffer the consequences of his action. Realizing that the mantis is about to strike him, Ray activates Soul Reserve, which helps him to mitigate the damage of the mantis' strike. Suddenly, the mantis notices something weird happening behind it. It turns around to see a beetle burning behind it. Apparently, when Ray threw his dagger earlier, he was aiming for the beetle while using the soul thread to guide the strike. With Ray killing the beetle, he completes the conditions for the complete soul. Rai obtains the rock soul type B, and he immediately begins item creation. The system asks him to select the catalyst soul he wants to use, and Ray selects his own soul. The system accepts this and welcomes him to the world of the complete, where he can create the item he wants. Specifically, to create stories and translate them into other languages. So after having the translation and checking the translation in detail, and I gave this translation to our partner abroad to create audio and process the audio, we have an audio file like this as for the images. That appear in our videos are collected from Google Images, and then we will only select images that fall under usage rights allowed for reuse and modification. We use Google's rights filtering tool according to the